Welcome, everyone, to Mondays with Michael. So glad you're with us today. This is our weekly live vodcast, I think it's called, video podcast on natural health and health freedom. So if you're just joining us for the first time, a warm welcome, and welcome back to folks who've been with us over the last about almost 6.5 years, where we've been coming together every week, starting in the early days of the COVID pandemic. So we started out in the early weeks, actually, March of 2020, the early weeks of the scamdemic, and we continue. So a warm welcome to all. We're streaming to several different platforms today. If you'd like to introduce yourself on whatever platform you're viewing us on, please do. If you are on our watch page or on our Zoom link, feel free to put questions in the chat for myself or our wonderful guest that we have today. So let's jump in and we will get going. Okay, this is an offering of the Geta Institute. Our motto here, as with the Clinic for Chinese and Functional Medicine, is nature first, drugs last. There's nothing wrong with pharma drugs. They're just massively overused, especially in the US. And there is a natural solution to anyone a person might consider taking a pharmaceutical for at least 95% of the time. That's a kind of a conservative estimate. And this is a warm welcome again to show number 319 for this June 8th, 2026. Just a couple of announcements. We have a new course starting today, a new course on cardiovascular health, a natural approach to cardiovascular health. It's called Decoding the Heart. I'm presenting this in conjunction with a Texas colleague and nutritionist and graduate of our functional medicine program, Greg Mitchell, who's down there in Houston. And we start today, so please join us for Decoding the Heart. If you know anyone who has any cardiovascular concerns or would just like to stay well and have good cardiovascular health and vitality, please join us. And use your discount code, a little thank you for being on the show, of MWM10. We are also in the final weeks of the Headache Advantage with Dr. Scott Verzal and myself. So please join us for that. All our previous classes were recorded. And we are getting closer to our annual in-person retreat. This August 26th to 30th, we return to the beautiful ranch and organic farm and retreat center here in Colorado. So please join us for that. Early bird is still going on. So if you're a practitioner, please join us. It's one of the highlights of our year here at the school is getting together in person in this beautiful setting. So it is my great honor to introduce an absolutely wonderful guest, brilliant man, Marc Girardot, and I'm going to read you a little bit about him. He is just an amazing thinker, and we had for me, it was a very impactful conversation leading up to today's show. And what impressed me was not just his brilliance, but his courage in sharing unpopular views, even those that contradict the mainstream paradigm. Today we're going to be talking about a theory that he has pioneered called bolus theory and vaccine shedding. He comes from a very robust, very impressive corporate background as a corporate strategist for some of the largest technology companies in the world. He spent 15 years at Cisco Systems as a managing director. And with the arrival of the pandemic back in 2020, he turned his considerable, prodigious, I would say, analytical skills to the field of health and to vaccinology. So he is a citizen scientist and researcher. He is the author of a best-selling book that just came out a couple of years ago called The Needle's Secret: Unraveling the Mystery of Vaccine Harm and the Bolus Theory Revolution. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's okay. I didn't either until he explained it to me in our earlier conversation. And it's a very I believe, very credible theory. I'm not going to explain it to you because he'll do a better job of it. And he's also the scientific advisor at the Panda think tank, which he will also tell us about. So, whatever platform you're on, please let's give a warm Mondays with Michael welcome to Mr. Mark Girardeau. Mark, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate your spending some time with us today to talk about some very significant issues, ones that we've talked about a lot here over the years on the show, with the arrival of the what I call the genocide jab. And you've done a remarkable job of bringing some very fresh new insights into what's happening with these injections and with vaccines in general. So thank you, Mark, for being with us today.
Thank you for hosting me. Can you hear me okay?
Got a ton of echo. I don't know if there's a microphone that would be closer to your mouth that you have available.
I have, for some reason, I rebooted and my,
Oh, you may have to select the different microphone. I'm hearing mostly the room. Maybe you have to select a different microphone in Zoom there.
I don't know, but I can't see it. That's the
Oh,
problem.
okay.
There was a
Okay.
reboot.
Sure. Yeah, if you need to, go ahead. Whatever you need to do technically. I want to make sure folks can hear you clearly. So do whatever you need to. We're good. You know, it's a live show, so folks understand that things happen
I,
technically. So yeah, whatever you need to
it
do.
was doing fine and, okay, give me this.
Yeah, no, you go right ahead. Take your time. I'm going to read a little bit about Mark's bio. We could spend the whole show on Mark's bio. It's very impressive. Mark is a visionary strategist, researcher, and best-selling author, known for pioneering the bolus theory, which is a groundbreaking framework that explains systemic harm from vaccines and injectables through inadvertent intravenous delivery. And he's going to explain what all of this means. He was born in San Francisco. He earned his MBA and master's in management and economics. His early career spanned high-impact roles in technology, consulting, and automotive. As a car guy, I was really impressed with that. He was managing director of Cisco Systems for 16 years, where he led global teams for major automotive manufacturers and co-authored 2 patents. Mark held key roles at Booz Allen and Hamilton, Air Liquide, and Asana Technology, which is not the productivity software. This is an automotive technology company. And he's also been a visiting professor and keynote business speaker. And back in 2020, Mark shifted his focus to health and vaccine safety. As scientific advisor at the Panda think tank, he conducted over 15,000 hours of research and authored over 100 articles on natural immunity, which is what we talk about here all the time, and vaccines. Um, and um, and his seminal book, The Needle Secret, has become a bestseller and introduced bolus theory, mechanisms that explain a wide range of harms across all vaccine types and many injectables. Mark has a very popular Substack. He has over 25,000 subscribers, over 1.5 million views. His work has earned international recognition, including the Biz News Best of 2021 award for his widely read article on natural immunity versus vaccine-induced immunity, one of my favorite subjects, and that article was superb. He has collaborated with leading voices such as Dr. Mike Yeadon, Nick Hudson, Steve Kirsch, and Nobel Prize winner Professor Michael Levitt. Based in France, Mark remains dedicated to rigorous independent scientific inquiry and communicating complex truths with clarity and impact. So we are
Okay.
delighted to
Can
have
you
him
hear
here
me
today.
better now?
Oh, it sounds great.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks for hosting me. I apologize for this
No, no worries.
glitch.
Oh, it's okay. They
It
happen
happens.
regularly here. It's okay. It's a live show, so people understand. You know, the technology is great when it works, you know. So, Mark, for folks who are less familiar with your work, we have a couple of your existing fans, at least here today on Zoom, and many others on other platforms. You just fill us in a little bit about your journey from being a leading corporate strategist and thinker and team leader. How did you go from that, having leadership roles in some of the largest technology and automotive companies in the world, to getting into this whole vaccine bit? If you just tell us a little bit about your journey, it's pretty amazing.
Um, I left Cisco in 2015 to try a moonshot, to try to launch a moonshot with
Hmm.
a former head of engineering of BMW.
Wow. Wow.
Just I don't do I tend
I
to
had one
do
of those.
um, and and I failed to raise enough cash to start this project in Europe.
Sure.
And I ended up broke basically
Hmm.
with three kids in university,
Hmm.
and it just so happened that I had also been helping a friend from Pasteur, the Institut
Hmm.
Pasteur in Paris, who had a fascinating business, who was starting an anti-cancer DNA vaccine.
Wow.
So right before COVID, I had this deep dive into the latest and greatest um, immuno-oncology,
Hmm.
and I was trying to help him raise money, but I also tried to improve the product with
Yes.
him, and so I did a deep dive, and I was trying to help him fund the company too, and you can't fund a company if you don't understand what they do,
Right.
right?
Right. Because this
So
wasn't
you
your, I mean, your training was in business management, leadership, economics. This wasn't your native spot.
No, I was the head of advisory, global head for Cisco
Hmm.
on automotive.
Hmm.
But it did 10 years before, the CEO of Cisco
Right.
um, had asked our group to work with one of the biggest pharma in France,
Oh.
and I was the only senior consultant that the CEO for France trusted.
Oh, wow.
So I ended up doing a little work about probably almost 20, yeah, maybe 20 years ago
Hmm.
on or yeah, on biotech
Okay.
technology, and then this deep dive on the latest and greatest, and then really I don't want I mean it's I want to be short on this, but
Sure.
fundamentally what happened was when COVID hit, I did like everybody else. It's like, first I was surprised and afraid, and then started looking into the detail, and some of the things didn't work out.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I, as a former consultant, or as a consultant, I've been trained in scientific method in a brutal way.
Hmm.
My mentors were pretty strict, and so
Okay.
and so and I realized very early on that COVID wasn't a threat. Uh,
Oh,
and
okay.
that's when I
Huh.
reached out to Michael Leavitt, Professor Michael Leavitt,
Yes. Yes.
because he was also very vocal. He had a mathematical approach. I had taken a different approach. I wrote an article recently about that, where I had normalized the um, the number of deaths with the number of tests.
Hmm.
Basically, was I was trying to simulate, it's like, well, maybe the more you test by death, the closer you're going to be to the right fatality rate.
Hmm.
And I built a convergence curve that was going to basically zero, or 0.1%, and not 5% or 2% or even 1%, very far from that.
Hmm.
So that's how it all started. And I continued to work. Michael Leavitt introduced me to Panda. He was my sponsor there, and I became a scientific advisor to Nick Hudson and to the team there.
Hmm.
And then in early 2020, when vaccines started, I something was off.
Hmm.
I realized that there was no way that COVID could justify the death of all these
Hmm.
people.
Hmm.
So there's an inflection point that's not normal. You know, normally there's dry tinder. It's called dry tinder. It's basically you kill the elderly during a pandemic or an epidemic, and then
Right.
the younger generation survive. You don't rebuild elderly overnight,
Hmm.
and that's what happened. You could
Hmm.
see that January 1st, when people started vaccinated people, COVID deaths started picking back up, and that didn't make sense.
Hmm.
And I started my journey then. I mean, or my second phase of the journey, which was
Right.
really trying to first of all blow the whistle on vaccine harm, because
Oh.
even at Panda, everybody wanted to be everybody wanted out. So the vaccines were supposed to be the silver bullet.
Normalizing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and 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 I first at Panda started blowing the whistle, and it was not easy because a lot of researchers didn't agree with me on that.
Hmm.
Um, and it took like I think something like 8 or 9 months to convince the Panda crowd.
Hmm.
So I started investigating what was happening. Evidently there was one big discrepancy was that not everybody was harmed. You know, that
Right.
that was that was the fundamental realization that I had, which was okay. So some people are harmed and some people aren't.
By
You
the
know, if
vaccine.
by the vaccines, and
Yeah.
and that's a very important um, observation that I did not push aside. I kept
Hmm.
it core to my to, to my scientific method,
Right.
and and so I dove into that. This is what how could it be that some people are harmed, some people aren't? And very, very quickly, when you realize that, if you take the same vial
Right.
and you have one person that dies, one person that's damaged, and person or four people who are safe and fine, or
Right.
apparently are, well, it can't be that the vial is contaminated or poisonous, right? Because everybody
Right.
would you inject the same dose, everybody should be reacting if it's poison in the same way.
Wasn't that a common thing with vaccines and pharma drugs in general? Is that because of biochemical individuality, epigenetics, genetic tendencies, that folks do respond to the same intervention differently?
I have a lot of problem with that
Okay.
perspective because
Yeah. Yeah.
because because the human body and is a platform, is a biological platform,
Right.
and we're all built on that same platform.
Hmm.
Um, we all need oxygen. We all have, white blood cells, red blood cells. Um, we can be at a different stage in our lives where, of course, the conditions are not the same. So you can't compare a newborn to an 80-year-old or even a 40-year-old. There's a
Okay.
lot of things that are different. I agree with that. But the fundamentals, actually, if vaccines are given, it's because there's commonalities in the way our immune system is supposed to react.
Hmm.
So I I joined the steering committee the scientific steering committee that Steve Kirch had set up
Yes. Yes.
with Peter McCullough, with Jessica
Right.
Rose, with Professor Byron Brittle. I think
Hmm.
Robert Malone was on it also a bit.
Yes.
Kevin McKernan came later, John Bodwin. So a lot of the key players around uh, the medical freedom movement, but on the scientific side.
Right.
Um, and and I was present when Byron Brittle started talking about during a meeting where he said he had received the biodistributions from a FOIA request he had
Hmm.
made to Japan. It's probably in the sorry in 20 I said 2020 in 2021. I mean it was probably June 2021.
And Mark,
Um,
what's just for our listeners, what is biodistribution data?
well, the biodistribution data is when you inject the product, where does it go,
Hmm.
right? And and people need to realize that what they inject us with is a technology that comes from anti-cancer technology, right?
Hmm.
So it's a technology that's supposed to tell your immune system how to attack tumors, right?
Hmm.
Um, it's not trivial and it's not mundane. It's not innocuous.
Now you're talking about mRNA?
Yes, I'm talking about mRNA.
Okay.
mRNA, it there are different numbers out there. I took a number. I've kept a number that the pharma industry gave us 6 years ago, 5 years ago,
Hmm.
on the number of nanoparticles, but it's probably more than that.
Hmm.
But I've kept a conservative view, and what they had said at the time was in Pfizer vaccine, there's 10 billion nanoparticles,
Hmm.
in the Moderna 40, and in the Janssen vaccines there was, or and the AstraZeneca 50 billion. Now
Hmm.
you need to, so that's a potential, but what happens when a nanoparticle enters a cell and contaminates that cell? Well, if it's an immune sensitive cell, like most cells, in the muscle or along the lining of your blood vessels, the
Yeah.
endothelial cells, these are sensitive to the immune system. So if ever they're contaminated by a virus or if they're
Right.
contaminated by a vaccine,
Right.
they have a self-monitoring process
Right.
by which they have your immune system test whether or not what they're producing is permitted or not, right?
Hmm.
So if they produce a protein that is abnormal, that is foreign, like again, like a virus, or like in this case the spike protein, the immune system will detect it and decide to scuttle that cell. It's going to destroy that cell.
Right.
Okay?
Because it's producing a foreign protein.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
it's contaminated and it's dangerous. Now, if you have to imagine the potential of harm of 10 billion of those, or even
Hmm.
40 billion of those,
Hmm.
it's massive. Okay,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
actually massive. Now, I, from my experience in anti-cancer vaccines, I know that transfection isn't that effective.
Hmm.
So evidently, thankfully, it's not 10 billion or 40 billion, but it's probably a percentage of that, maybe 1% or 2%, which is still a lot of cells.
And Mark, just for our listeners, what is transfection?
Transfection is the fact of bringing um, a product, mRNA in this case,
Mm-hmm.
inside a cell. So
Hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
lipid nanoparticles um, are are surrounded by fat, by definition, lipid,
Right.
right? And when they hit a cell, those are going to merge together, and there's going to be what is called endocytosis. So the cell is going to capture the nanoparticle,
Right.
embrace it or intake it, and then when the nanoparticle is going to be inside the cell, the um, the inside the cell is typically acid, and so the fat is going to break away, or the envelope is going to break away and release the mRNA inside the cell.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to go back to the discussion I had with Biram and
Yes.
Steve Church at the time, I was extremely concerned by the biodistribution.
Hmm.
And I had a different concern to my colleagues.
Hmm.
My colleagues were mostly focused on where the nanoparticles were going
Right.
and where they were stored.
Okay. So
Um,
which tissues, which organs?
yes, and
Okay.
but once you understand how the technology works, and how the vascular system is built, it's very difficult for nanoparticles to enter any tissue
Hmm. Hmm.
because you have these linings, you have these endothelial walls
And the
that are
glycocarotids.
they're they're they're, they're physical
Right.
barriers.
Right.
Okay, they are what is called the blood tissue barriers in most of the systems in the organs, and you don't pass through them easily. A lot of people have been saying that you can pass through them. You don't. Um,
Hmm.
so I was more concerned by the fact that these nanoparticles were going to circulate
Right.
in the vascular system and hit those walls. And
Hmm.
okay, that was my main concern. The where the nanoparticles are going is not so important. I mean,
Hmm.
but uh, where they physically hit the walls,
Right.
um, and where they transfect was a major concern for me because of the immune reaction. You
Oh,
understand?
okay.
Right?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And sadly, I was right.
Hmm.
Um, when you look at the um, the autopsies that you can find, there's numerous autopsies and case reports on the internet. Um, when you look at the damage, you see concentrated damage on the endothelial walls, on these walls, just like you're showing, exactly there. Um, now, as an entrepreneur and as a consultant,
Right.
I can, when I have a hypothesis, I can take things top down and bottom up. Okay, I
Right.
can, I
Right.
can conceptually. So when Professor Brittle said that the biodistribution was, all over, um, logically and top down, I basically said, well, there's going to be a problem with endothelial um, cells being transfected and destroyed. So that was top
Hmm.
down. Bottom up was looking at autopsies and biopsies, and looking at and reading through thousands of case reports these past 5 years.
Hmm.
Um, you find that the scientists tell you that um, the the attacks are indeed T cells are attacking the vascular walls,
Hmm.
but they're saying something which is extremely important. They're saying they are attacking them concentrated. So they're and that's also a fundamental observation.
Okay.
Why is it fundamental? Because our vascular system is intended to disseminate and distribute homogeneously
Hmm.
uh, oxygen, nutrients, right?
Right.
There is no way that our bodies is going to take oxygen from our lungs or nutrients from our gut
Right.
and then distribute it only to the heart or to the brain. That never
Right. Right.
happens,
Right.
right? It's impossible. It's physically, physiologically impossible because of the way the vasculature is architected.
Hmm.
So when you look at these um, uh, these these foci, these focalized hits of those nanoparticles, that can only mean one thing.
Hmm.
It can only mean that they are hit by what is called a bolus of
Okay.
particles.
Okay.
The bolus is a term, a well-known term used in medicine,
Right.
and it's a way to deliver drugs uh, to avoid the dissemination effect of the vasculature, right?
Hmm.
So, for example, when you have an MRI of the brain done, sometimes you need contrast agents.
Right.
Well, they're going to send a bolus. They typically have to watch out, but they're going to send a bolus that's sufficiently concentrated so the contrast is going to be higher in the MRI.
Right.
It's okay, and and that's not going to stay very long because your liver is going to filter it, and it's going to be diluted into your blood, and very quickly the effect is going to fade out.
Right.
So a bolus is created when you inject directly a product.
Hmm.
Okay, there is no other way.
Right.
There is no other way. So so that meant that the intramuscular injections that we're giving to the population,
Right.
to 5.6 or 5.7 billion people throughout the
Hmm.
world,
Hmm.
we're using a technique, so the intramuscular injection technique, that was going intravascular.
Hmm.
Okay? Now, I have I have gone much further than that. Okay, so a lot of people think that my theory is limited to something called aspiration, because damage by vaccines or damage by injectables going directly intravenous has is known today and was known a century ago. Dentists are extremely cautious when they do anesthetics not
Right.
to hit not to hit a vein,
Right.
okay? Because when they do that, there can be heart problems, there can be all sorts
Yes.
of adverse events. Anesthesiologists also know about that. They're extremely careful in the way they inject. But for some reason, vaccines did away with that caution.
Oh.
Okay. Now, um, what is clear is people haven't really they think that what happens is you when you inject and it goes intravenous, it's because
Right.
you've inserted the needle inside um, a blood vessel.
Right.
But here the doctors that have what their answer was, well, there's very few large vessels, and they're right.
Hmm.
Um, and I've actually undertaken a Monte Carlo simulation um, based
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Please explain if I wasn't familiar with that term until our conversation. What is a Monte Carlo simulation?
a Monte Carlo simulation is you have statistics of something. Let's say, so in my case, I had statistics on the frequency of the number of capillaries and their size
Hmm.
in a muscle.
Hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
So if you consider that you're going to insert the needle and you can actually simulate the number of vessels it's going to cut and which size they're going to be.
Hmm.
So um, what I have simulated is let me go back up a minute. Sorry,
Yeah.
so
No.
so your audience understands.
Please.
One of my biggest breakthrough, which for some reason nobody's ever thought of, is um, if you look today at the ways supposedly uh, the injectable, a drug, a vaccine
Right.
goes becomes systemic, they tell you, well, either it's directly injected intravenously,
Right.
or it goes through the lymphatic system, or there is what they call absorption, which is
Hmm.
a, a way, a sort of a middle road
Yeah.
that's not explained very much. It says, well, maybe the endothelial cells are carrying uh, the material from one side of the wall to the other into the
Hmm.
vasculature, which is possible with some drugs. Indeed, I'm bringing a fourth road,
Hmm.
a, a fourth road, and the fourth road is based on physics.
Hmm.
And it's based on what's called pressure gradients. The fact
Okay.
that the fact that when you inject a liquid inside a sealed environment, um, it will naturally migrate towards the lower pressure areas.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay? But when you inject, so normally a muscle is sealed, but except that with the needle, you cut through thousands of microcapillaries, right,
Hmm.
of various sizes, thousands of them. Um, and and you also create, depending on the speed at which you inject, you're
Right.
going to create a huge pressure, extra pressure.
Huh.
And
That
and
makes
what I
sense.
and so what I've discovered is that um, especially if you don't aspirate, well, you lose out on a rare opportunity, a rare occasion when the needle is very close or inside a vessel. That,
Hmm.
according to my simulation, happens 1 out of 5,000,
Hmm.
which is roughly what people are saying. So,
Hmm.
that was already a big risk. Um,
Right.
but But there was also in my simulation a huge difference between a very slow injection
Right.
and a very fast injection.
Hmm.
And what happens is we've generalized a very fast injection. Um, and what that does is it creates a very intense bolus that goes directly intravenously
Hmm.
in the first minutes. Um, and uh, this there's going to be a leak first extremely intense, and it's going to slow down as the pressure goes down.
Right.
Okay, and so as you see on this infographic I created,
Yeah.
um, you can see that if you're injected in the deltoid and if
Right.
it leaks directly, it's going to leak. Oh, typically half of the dose is going to leak over an hour, but a big
Hmm.
chunk of it, as much as in some cases, 100% of it in the first 5 or 10 minutes can happen
Hmm.
too.
Hmm.
And it's going to go to the heart chambers. It's typically it it's typically coated with PEG.
Oh,
Um,
polyethylene glycol.
exactly.
And
And
what's that
that
doing there?
It's to avoid that all the fats coalesce together in the vial.
Hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
so which means that at the very beginning, it means that the nanoparticles cannot transfect too, because stops it from binding together in the vial
Right.
also is going to stop that. So there's an activation, if you want. There's an activation of the nanoparticles, and that typically happens in the lungs. So the nanoparticles gets um, to the right chambers of the heart, and they go back to the lungs. Here they go through all the capillaries. The bolus fragments into smaller boluses.
Hmm.
It's back to the left chambers of the heart, and then it's sent directly into the aorta and the large artery, and it's activated. Okay,
Hmm. Hmm.
this is activated, and one of the that's a pretty recent lesson learned from me from the my Monte Carlo simulation
Hmm.
is that of course, it's a random process. Okay, so it's going to distribute across 10,000 kilometers of capillaries throughout the body.
Hmm.
So sometimes it'll hit the brain, sometimes the liver, sometimes the
Right.
nervous system, the connective tissue, the skin, wherever, and and but it's always going to go through the aorta and the large arteries.
Hmm.
So there's a hub here that is hit repeatedly um, during the first, especially during the first hour,
Hmm.
and especially during the first minutes, actually.
Oh.
Okay, where it is extremely concentrated,
Hmm.
and that explains the white clots, right? Because what?
Oh.
Okay, because the
Huh.
white clots is a complete transfection of a large artery or the aorta, and a complete flaying by the T cells of the endothelial wall.
Hmm.
Um, and what follows is a coagulation cascade that covers the walls
Right.
um, with a clot, and and evidently the stream of blood is extremely intense in those areas,
Hmm.
and that creates a lumen inside a hole, if you will. Um, so it's like it becomes like a donut that you've actually pulled, if you will.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's because you've created a coating. It's a natural band-aid, if you want,
Right.
that happens. That's but that's in the area where there's most blood pressure.
Hmm.
Um, what's so 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 let me try to so that's my theory. My theory is that a large part of the injected dose in the muscle actually goes directly intravenously,
Hmm.
and the vaccine particle hit the walls and contaminate the cells there, which
Right.
are then destroyed by the immune system.
Hmm.
And that's going to create three three imbalances or three problems. One, it's going to create a massive repair imbalance because we've never evolved for two things. We've never evolved for such damage to the end to our vasculature. We've never this is more than that you would have if you were hacked into pieces,
Hmm.
because we're destroying. It's like 1,000 cuts inside our vascular system,
Hmm.
right? When if we
Wow.
get a bite or something, it's just a tiny portion of the endothelial that's harmed.
Right.
So, so that triggers an abnormal level of demand for repair, and
Hmm.
notably
Hmm.
coagulation, because
Hmm.
coagulation is triggered by damage to the endothelium.
Right.
So the larger the surface of endothelium damage, the
Right.
more coagulation is going to occur. And that explains thrombosis, that explains thrombocytopenia, right?
Hmm.
Thrombocytopenia
Right.
happens because you've actually depleted the bloodstream uh, of platelets,
Huh.
right? That's people have been coming up with all sorts of weird ideas, antibodies against factor four, all sorts
Right. Right. Right.
of
Right.
nonsense. But the reality of it is, if you have thrombocytopenia, is because you've used up the your platelets, and that gives you
And
a
how are
feel
those platelets getting used up more?
by the coagulation cascade. They're part of the coagulation.
Oh,
They become
I
that clots.
Okay. Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Now, so that's the first imbalance. It's a huge imbalance in terms of, and for example, in the case of the white clots are so dense and a bit, special because there's also a depletion of plasmin, and there's a huge push of thrombin, which makes the fibrin mesh
Right.
tighter,
Yes.
and that's been demonstrated. So the fact that there's all of these things make for a clot that stays and cannot be dissolved.
And is these are these massive clots that are being pulled out on autopsy, these, 4, 6, 8, 12-inch long,
Yes,
gummy, gray clots.
yes, they're white. They're pretty white. It's
Right.
because they became white with time because in a clot
Right.
you have the mesh that's created. It's called fibrin. It's
Right.
created, and platelets and red blood cells, white blood cells, including also spike proteins, are stuck in there.
Hmm.
And then with time, the immune system is going to clean up everything that's blocked inside, and then progressively try to break it up. And
Right.
normally it's supposed to break up with what is called a plasmin activator,
Right.
um, that triggers plasmin inside the clot. But the problem is the demand was so enormous
Right.
that the clot was formed with not enough plasmin inside, which means that
Oh.
when it breaks up, it doesn't breaks up in molecule level
Right.
elements, but in slightly bigger elements, which is what people have called amyloids, that are
Right.
circulating amyloids. That's
Right.
what's happening there. Um, Now, let's go back to the repair imbalance. So
Yep.
there's this repair imbalance because of the magnitude of the damage, the endothelial damage. That's one part. But there's also another problem, is that we've never evolved for longitudinal harm.
Hmm.
We typically, our bodies, and it's true for all animals,
Right.
we've evolved for harm that is, let's call it cross-sectional, um,
Okay.
right? Because like a cut, right? And so, if you cut, or if an animal bites you, right, it's going to crush or cut multiple capillaries, okay?
Hmm.
But it's not going to destroy an entire artery inside, right?
Hmm.
So the way the repair um, is allocated
Right.
is through an architecture which is distributed, right? Like capillaries going like that.
Right.
And so the bloodstream is going to distribute repair in a fractal manner, right? Ever evenly everywhere.
Oh,
Okay?
interesting.
But
Huh.
but okay, but if ever you flay an entire length of an artery, of large
Right. That's
like
the
we've seen,
longitudinal.
the longitudinal.
Yep.
Well, the thing is, the repair will react upstream, right? Because
Huh.
it's going to get the signal here that
Right.
there's a need for repair. So it's going to repair. It's a bit like if you had a long, series of crashes on a highway,
Right.
right? And let's say 200 cars crashed into each other, okay?
Right.
And the emergency services can enter, and the only thing they can do is they react to the first people who are harmed when they get in. But
Right.
the people who are all the way downstream are never going to get the emergency services. So you have a monopolization of repair upstream
Right.
and depletion downstream. And that
Huh.
explains, for example, fistulas. For example, fistulas, nobody knows what fistulas are. I'm actually probably one of the first people on the planet that explains fistula.
Okay.
It's no, but it's common sense.
Yes. Yes.
I'm sure somebody will prove me right soon. But what I mean is common sense. The biology works that way. It's just misallocation. So
Hmm.
so you have growth factors because
Right.
when you damage something, you have growth factors coming in,
Right.
VEGF, what's it called?
Vascular
Vascular
endothelial
and
growth factor.
endothelial
Yeah.
growth factors.
Hmm.
VEGF is going to react at the entry point, at the upstream part of the damage, right? And it's going to oversupply VEGF there.
Hmm.
It's not. It's just it's a supply and demand problem here that is oversupplied upstream and undersupplied downstream. So
Hmm.
instead of allocating, and creating micro vessels everywhere, it's going to create one massive vessel upstream.
Hmm.
Okay?
Oh,
Same
okay.
same things. You need coagulation factor, but you're going to have coagulation factor that's going to be same monopolized upstream
Right.
and depleted downstream. Well,
Hmm.
if you have a flayed lining that is not clotted, it has no band-aid, um, the disappearance of the endothelial layer of
Right.
that layer means there's no calcification inhibitor produced anymore.
Hmm.
If you don't have coagulation inhibitors, sorry,
Right.
calcification inhibitors,
Right.
um, you will have calcification, and you're going to create plaque.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
so so that's one aspect, and of course, another aspect of that is going to be thrombosis.
Right.
Okay, because you're going
Right.
to have overwhelming provision of coagulation factor.
Right.
And at one point, either it's going to clog or the coagulation inhibitors downstream are going to be overwhelmed, and you're going to have a thrombosis.
Hmm. Okay.
If so that's the first, and we've seen that over and over and over, and many times people haven't seen it because you will have also microthrombosis in the brain, in the heart,
Right.
in all sorts
Right.
of places. So what that will do is necrosis.
So is Mark, is this mechanism in part at least what's explaining the myocarditis that is
No,
showing up? Just is that a different mechanism? Is that more of an autoimmune
that's
mechanism?
no. Well, I will explain. That's my next slide. But let me finish
Okay.
first on.
Okay.
So
Sure.
no,
Sure.
there's three things
Yes.
happening, and then there's a cascade of dominoes
Hmm.
behind that. Okay, so
Okay.
there is first thing is um, cardiovascular repair imbalances. Then there's
Yes.
necrosis, and there's necrosis, very short terms related to thrombosis,
Right.
but there's long term also necrosis related to degeneration, white
Hmm.
clot clogging, and stuff like that, or
Hmm.
or plaque clogging also.
Yes.
Necrosis causes death or causes um, um, either partial or total organ failure
Hmm.
or system failure. So if you have necrosis in the connective tissue, you're going to have holes, and your connective
Hmm.
tissue is no longer going to play its role.
Hmm.
If you have um, necrosis in your pancreas, you're going to destroy beta cells, and you're going to have type 1 diabetes.
Right.
Okay, so depending on where the necrosis happens and the the severity of the necrosis can be partial. I have friends. I have two friends who've lost 20 and 30% of their lung capacity
Hmm.
that way.
Wow.
So it's partial, thankfully. Otherwise, they'd be dead,
Right.
uh, right? But in some cases, one of my
That's a
friends
lot.
lost his entire gallbladder.
Hmm.
Right, and depending on where it happens, it could be lethal, it could be problematic, uh, and difficult, and difficult to repair. If it's in the skin, the skin can actually is actually fairly resilient. if it happens in the nerve system, you're
Right.
going to be, you're going to have Guillain-Barré, and you're going to have paralysis.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Yep.
that's the second big. Uh, the third is probably the most fascinating. And it's quite simple, but its implications are humongous.
Hmm.
Um, as I said, the in the capillaries,
Right.
um, the there is only one layer um, that that composes the capillary, and that's the
Right.
endothelial layer.
That's right.
Contrary to veins and arteries that have, a smooth muscle layer, and then they're supported by a third layer.
Right.
If you destroy the endothelium in the capillaries, you're basically gonna bleed, or you're gonna basically bleed inside the tissue.
Hmm. Right.
Okay, and and just here I'm taking my top-down approach. It makes sense that if if evolution, God has created these filters, okay, it's for a good reason,
Yes.
right? It's for elements that are circulating in the blood, not
Right.
to penetrate the tissue.
Right.
Right? Okay, so before talking about vaccines, or before talking about whenever, for example, you twist your ankle, or you hurt yourself with your finger, or else, what happens? You have inflammation, right?
Right.
Inflammation. Why do you have inflammation? You have inflammation because you literally tore the capillaries, right?
Hmm.
We don't. So you don't realize that you're bleeding, but you're bleeding.
Right. Right.
Okay, you're not massively bleeding, but what you're doing, what's happening is your capillaries were torn apart and the endothelial layers was broken.
Hmm.
What happens next is that you have blood, depending on the size of the leak. You might have blood, or you might have elements that are leaking inside your tissue that are not supposed to.
Right.
Okay, and if they're not supposed to be there, they're going to trigger automatically an immune reaction.
Right.
That's the job of the immune system, to trigger an immune reaction, and then to repair the whole thing. Now, one of the most prominent problems related to the vaccines is the fact that you have capillary leakage, that the blood
Hmm.
tissue barriers have been broken down.
Okay.
It
Yes.
can be it can be transient, it could be partial, it could be extremely severe, um, or it could be permanent, and it could be permanent. Okay, why can it become permanent? It can become permanent because often you have considerable endothelial damage upstream, and therefore, uh, well, no, that's the reason. That's why that's the
Oh, right. Okay.
explanation. That's the explanation of what happens in the muscle when you inject.
Right. And what you point out, I just want to underline something you said, Mark, that speed, that technique matters.
Yes,
Um,
speed. If the fact that you're injected extremely quickly,
right.
is there are physics formulas that explain the higher the pressure, the larger the dose.
Hmm.
And so if you have a combination of that plus a larger vessel, slightly larger vessel, you can get a very big dose going IV directly.
Right. Okay.
But so let me explain this. This is There's a number of consequences if you break down a blood tissue barrier,
Hmm.
right? It's there, and it's physically broken. It's
Right.
physically gone. It's
Yes.
not magic. It's just
Right.
it.
Right.
No, it's
Right.
physically gone. The T cells have destroyed that. They're completely destroyed the layer,
Hmm.
and therefore there's nothing containing the bloods and the antigens and the contaminants from entering um, the blood. And here there's different dominoes. Um, depending on the area, it's less or more dangerous. Okay,
Right.
um, it can be extremely dangerous if you have a very large leak in the brain. You're going to have
Right.
encephalitis, right? Encephalitis is exactly that, right? Is you have large leaks of capillaries in the brain. Um, well, that's the overall.
Okay.
Yeah, go. Um, the so
Oh yeah, if you want a different slide, I'm happy to put it up for you.
yeah, that's
Yes.
what's okay. I'll describe it.
Okay.
If the there are different things happening. One is leak in, and the
Right.
other thing is leak out.
Hmm.
So let me start with leak out because
Yep. Yep.
um, sometimes the tissue contains elements
Right.
um, that are contained by the endothelial barrier and are regulated by the endothelial barrier. Let me
Hmm.
give you two examples. They're
Okay.
extremely important examples.
Yep.
First one is the bone marrow. If the blood bone marrow barrier is broken down,
Right.
elements that are contained in the bone marrow can leak and will inevitably leak.
Stem
And
cells.
stem cells can, I'm not so sure that it's stem cell. That
Okay.
would be okay, but I'm more thinking because they're deeper inside, but I think what's
Right.
happening more is immature um, uh, immune cells.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Now that's a very big problem. It's very transient because, as you're saying, as you suggested, there's massive numbers of hematopoietic stem cells, and they would rebuild. They would most likely rebuild if they're not necrosed. They
Right.
would most likely rebuild the endothelial layer very very quickly or relatively quickly.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Okay. That makes
but
sense.
but nonetheless, if people have been leaking immature cells, the whole stock would go,
Hmm.
right? And when that would occur, your capacity, your immune capacity, your defenses would be much lower
Hmm.
for at least 3 weeks, plus the time it
Hmm.
takes the immune system to mend the leak.
Hmm.
Why 3 weeks? Because the, the, typically it takes 3 weeks to mature an immune cell. So,
Okay.
and that would explain why some people had immune problems. I mean, there's always the possibility of necrosing also some areas,
Right.
including the bone marrow, which would, if you necrose the bone marrow and it becomes completely, at least one area, you will lower your immune capacity physically. Just
Right.
there's no question there. So you have this leak out. Another scenario is if you have an endocrine gland,
Right.
okay, if that endocrine gland or endocrine, it could be the pancreas, it could be the thyroid. Um, if the blood tissue barrier is broken down, then it's going to leak the hormone.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so again, I'm among it's probably a world first. I'm the first one explaining what is called hypersecretion.
Hmm.
You know, what the medical establishment has been saying for over 100 years is that the body's gone crazy and it's overproducing hormones.
Right.
Well, what I'm saying is, I'm stating that what's happening is it's not overproducing hormones, it's just over releasing. It's not over even releasing.
Huh.
It's just every single uh, everything, every single hormone element or molecule being produced is actually released in the bloodstream permanently, always, like
Right.
that. Which explains, for example, type 2 diabetes.
Hmm.
Because if you have type 2 diabetes, you would have that, and therefore you would become insulin resistant because
Right. That's more of a type 2 issue, not
exactly
production. Yeah.
you would have a type 2. You have too much insulin. Your insulin receptors would actually be reduced
Desensitized.
to
Yeah.
this exactly, and at the same time, um, you would have the second problem, which is elements entering the tissue that are not supposed to. So
Hmm.
there's a few dominoes or different dominoes. Of course,
Right.
that can happen anywhere in the body. Okay,
Right.
so the first domino is you have unwanted elements that trigger an immune reaction.
Right. Okay.
That's what you call autoimmunity.
Yep.
Except it's not autoimmune. It has nothing to do with the immune system gone haywire.
Hmm.
It's the immune system, trying to correct something's wrong. And by the way, the best proof of that is that people who go on who fast, for example, when they fast, they don't have inflammation.
Right. Autophagy is increased.
Well, it's not autophagy.
Oh, okay.
It's not autophagy. I mean,
Oh, okay.
it here what's happening is if if you don't have foreign elements in your
Oh, in a
bloodstream,
leaky gut, you've got less input. You have less food to leak through.
well, in a leaky, that's a different. We could talk about leaky gut, but that's yeah,
Sure, sure.
leaky gut is the same thing.
Right.
Leaky gut is the same thing, except it's not a blood tissue barrier that's broken, but it's a blood gut or it's a gut blood barrier that's
Right.
broken.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, it's the same concept.
Yep.
Okay, now we can discuss about leaky gut and the implication of a leak is what? Well, there's a number of implications. The first implication is depending on where it sits,
Right.
um, it's going to expose the blood to elements that haven't been processed. For example, gluten.
Hmm. Hmm.
Gluten is processed in the small intestines, in
Right.
the ileum, if I think, and
Yep.
it's supposed to be processed out and continue to be processed in the large intestine. If you have a leak there, some gluten is going to enter your bloodstream and it's going to create inflammation because you're not supposed to have that.
Right.
Okay, you're not supposed to have also lactose. You can become lactose intolerant because of that,
Hmm.
because milk is supposed to be broken down there. Lactose is supposed to be broken down there and then digested later.
Right.
Same problem. Um, Another, of course, you would have infection problems,
Right.
right?
Because what you're talking about is leaky vessels, more than leaky gut.
But leaky gut is leaky vessels. It's the same thing.
Okay. Right. Because it's a
It's a half.
microvascular.
It's you're just viewing it from a different angle.
Right. 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 Right.
Okay, leaky gut is a leak inside the blood.
Right.
But and by the way, interestingly enough, viruses can do the same thing, right?
Hmm.
If you get a virus and your epithelial lining is actually contaminated, your immune system is going to attack that and do the same thing.
Hmm.
Okay, it's exactly the same thing. But here, let me finish on leaky gut because
Yeah.
it's a
Please.
fundamental element. It's the same thing. It's the breakdown of the barrier
Right.
and elements that are not supposed to enter or leak. So here, of course, you're going to have immune cells that are going to leak inside your gut. The immune cells are going to attack your bacteria. It's going to create inflammation. It's going to deplete some of your biome. Okay, just as you can also trigger sepsis because you're going to have bacteria entering your bloodstream. It's not supposed to happen. Okay, and what else was those? No, so you see, there's um, there are different types of contaminants that can enter the tissue. Let's get out of the
Yep.
intestine, which is very
Sure, sure.
particular. But you see that, for example, you're talking about myocarditis.
Right.
Okay. Myocarditis is a leak. I mean, there's actually a study, Japanese, that showed exactly that both myocarditis and pericarditis were actually leaky capillaries in the heart.
Hmm.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Now, the problem with that, there's two different problems. Depending on the size of the leak, uh, if you have just a small leak, it's been mended somehow, piecemeal, but you still have elements coming in, creating inflammation. Long term, it's going to create degeneration. So if you have degeneration in the brain, it's going to be Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, and all of that.
Right.
But in the heart, it's going to be death.
Hmm.
So, so, so it's extremely important to try and figure out ways, and we can discuss that later, but of mending that so
Hmm.
that not only inflammation stops, but degeneration stops.
Okay. Okay.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is, in some cases, the leak is much bigger, and blood comes in. And when blood comes in, it typically brings in VEGF, and it starts
Right.
creating blood vessels in a place it's not supposed to.
Hmm.
So if it's in the lungs, it's going to create fibrosis,
Right.
right? And depending on the area it gets into, you might have these issues.
Right.
Um, Now, in some cases, other products are going to be able to enter. Um, the endothelial layer, for example, filters hormones.
Right.
It doesn't let hormones, notably progesterone and estrogen, inside
Yep.
most cells.
Right.
Okay. Now, if you have a leak and then you have estrogens and progesterone entering the tissue,
Right. Right.
um, well, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, estrogen is very proliferative, and so that's going to be a concern.
Oh, you're going to have endometriosis.
Right. Right.
You're going to have cells that behave like they think they're they're in the cervix, and they're not, and that's going to
Hmm.
be extremely painful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it explains also endometriosis, also a world first, I think. Um, and the last but not least, now there are some. The endothelial is also protective of stem cell niches.
Hmm.
Um, and, and as you can imagine, if they're protected, it's for a good reason, right?
Right.
Nature doesn't do things for the sake of doing them. There's always a purpose, there's always a reason. And the, um, the purpose is to protect stem cells from contaminants.
Right.
Okay. Now, if you, and by the way, that's true also for the fetus, right? Um, um, the the placenta, the trophoblast, is also protective of the fetus and can actually
Right.
be harmed in exactly the same fashion. Um, Now, if yeah, exactly, that's a good slide.
Okay. Great.
Um, this is extremely important because if you've destroyed the lining protecting stem cells, even
Right.
for a brief period of time, um, especially once the T cells are primed, notably after injection 2 or injection 3, the booster,
Hmm.
your T cells are going to react extremely quickly, right? So they can poke a hole very quickly, and then for the next hour, you're still going to have microboluses
Hmm.
circulating into your bloodstream.
Hmm.
Um, if ever those boluses penetrate a niche, there's a chance, there's a fair chance that they're going to contaminate the stem cell. Progenitor
Oh,
cell, the
okay.
probability is higher that they contaminate a progenitor cell, which are more numerous.
Right.
They are differentiated and they're more numerous, but they can also potentially uh, uh, contaminate a senior stem cells, a multipotent stem cells.
Right.
Um, and that's a very big problem. Why is that a big problem? Because stem cells and progenitor cells are immune privileged. They're too they're too strategic. They're too important in our for life for survival to be scuttled the way endothelial cells or muscle cells are, or the rest of the
Right.
somatic cells are.
Right.
So they are immune privileged. They cannot apoptosize. They natively their p53 gene is inhibited.
Right. Yep.
Now here you see I have an explanation that is let's say it's a generalization. It's not a conjecture per se.
Sure.
But what I'm saying is that stem cells, when they're contaminated by a vaccine, will react the way they typically do when contaminated by oxygen, by radiation, and by other drugs, and
Okay.
and other poison. And the way they do is we know they don't have a solution, right? Because if they did, they would have passed it along to their children cells, right? Because
Right.
every cells that we have in our body has emerged from a stem cell.
Hmm.
So evidently, evolution or God would have given that capacity to normal cells, but they didn't, and therefore we know stem cells don't have many solutions. I mean, they have solutions to try and manage contaminants, but when the contaminant is too large,
Right.
what it does is it divides.
Oh.
Okay, that's what happens with oxygen. If you have a hyperoxia, stem cells divide.
Hmm.
And in the case of vaccines, that's my hypothesis, is if a stem cell is contaminated by vaccines and start producing spike protein, it would divide and divide and divide and divide multiple times.
We
To
say
the
in functional medicine that the solution to pollution is dilution.
Yes, of course. That's the only way that either the cell dies,
Right.
okay, which is, but if it doesn't die, it has to dilute.
Hmm.
Okay, I call that evasion by replication mechanism.
Right.
Now, that's a big problem.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a big problem for two reasons. The first reason, it creates an abnormal level, an abnormal number, a surplus number of stem cells in the stem cell pool.
Right.
Because there's no demand. It's not a natural demand. So um, the, the endothelium is not getting message that it needs repair. So you're creating a huge number, an abnormal number of stem cells,
Hmm.
and that abnormal, at least that's what I'm conjecturing,
Yeah.
and that's also what we're seeing, and that pool of stem cell is going to react to demand for regeneration.
Hmm.
If it's in the bone marrow, it's going to react to demand for red blood cells or white blood cells.
Hmm.
Okay, so and here it's important to realize that, of course, depending on the seniority of the stem cell, the implications are not the same. Because if you have an undifferentiated stem cell, multipotent stem cell that's contaminated, you're up in the hierarchy of stem cells,
Hmm.
i.e., the entire um, all the demands to that stem cell are going to be are going to be met through the body.
Yeah.
So you're going to have way too much. So typically, for example, if that happens into the bone marrow, you're going to have a thromboblastic leukemia and die in 15 days.
Hmm.
Okay, so turbo cancers are that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. This seems to be related, a related mechanism of why this
Yes,
might be happening.
you could see that all the extremely um, quick cancers. My brother's father-in-law died of a glioblastoma. He was
Oh,
an he was an anesthesiologist in retired anesthesiologist in Italy, and he had a perfect health check before taking the vaccine. 10 days later, he had glioblastoma, advanced glioblastoma.
hmm.
10 days
Wow.
later.
Wow.
So and by the way, it's not on this chart, but I think you probably have another chart. If you compare stem cells characteristics with tumor characteristics, they're the same.
Yes.
And the whole traditional theory of mutation uh, makes no sense from a probabilistic standpoint, right?
Right.
You have glycolysis. Why do you have glycolysis? Sugar, fuel. Well, because stem cells are away from the blood. They're hidden away. So they're not getting oxygen enough to survive. They need a different fueling mechanism. P53 inhibition, because they're too precious. Vortex architectures to avoid having blood flow, too much blood flow. So the
Hmm.
microenvironment of
Hmm.
stem cells is the microenvironment of tumors. It's the same.
Hmm. The TME.
Exactly. The mid bodies, which are elements for self renewal, for extreme fast replication,
Right.
the pH alkaline environment. So is to avoid viruses, is to try to limit virus vulnerability. HTERT expression, which I know quite a lot about because it's HTERT is for is to repair the telomeres, right?
Hmm.
So cancer cells are eternal as well as stem cells are eternal because of HTERT expression,
Hmm.
right? And interestingly enough, uh, last but not least, but undifferentiated cancers
Right.
are extremely aggressive. Triple
Hmm.
negative breast cancer is extremely aggressive.
Right.
Why? Because it's a senior stem cell that's undifferentiated, was
Oh.
contaminated.
Huh. Huh. Interesting.
Dif- Differentiated tumor cells are closer to our progenitor cells that are also differentiated, and their scale isn't as large as stem cells, senior stem cells.
Mm. Mark, have you seen Dr. Tom Cowan's work, The Contagion Myth? Infections are not, and it's not an infection, it's not a contagion, it's a detoxification response. Have you seen any of that?
I haven't seen that. I
Okay.
have. What's interesting here is, um, frankly speaking, I had, when I started my work. I mean, I've been working on cancer for now 8 years, almost
Mm.
full time. So
Mm.
I think I'm pretty proficient on cancer.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, but I originally believed in the traditional theory.
Right.
It's and it's true that it can be viruses, it can be bacteria. It's always possible. It's
Right.
possible also that poisons, but it need to cross that endothelial layer, which isn't that easy.
Right.
Um, and I believe um, a lot of cancer today is iatrogenic. It's actually we're
Mm.
causing it ourselves,
Yes.
notably because of these boluses.
Yes. Hmm. Yeah, he's saying that viruses don't exist and what we call contagion and so-called infection is really not that. It's a detoxification reaction and all of this. So I'm
I,
just
I,
curious.
I disagree with that for two reasons. First of all, the whole detox thing,
Yeah,
we have antibodies and we have albumin and we have our bodies are extremely complex and
right.
they for example, spike protein is gone in day 9. It's actually not even present, almost hardly not present after the second injection because T cells are
Hmm,
so quick in killing
hmm,
them.
hmm.
We are a detox machine. We do that
Right,
day in, day out. We do that with mercury. We do that with a lot of heavy metals. Whenever
right.
you find them in the brain, it's because you have a leaky brain, but and you have
Mm.
problems. But otherwise, it doesn't get there. Um,
Well,
so I
hang on there. I just want to pause there for a minute. So this is running a little bit counter to the spikeopathy
oh
model.
yeah, oh yeah.
And so if
I
you could just talk about that, because we've had Peter on a
okay,
couple of times and others talking about spikeopathy and whether it's
okay.
so-called
So
natural COVID or the vaccine, the common element is the spike protein. That's what's causing the damage. We have to get rid of it. So I know you have some
no.
thoughts on that. You've thought about this quite a bit.
Yeah, I actually I falsified that hypothesis 4 years ago now.
Wow.
Um, let me explain why.
Yeah, please.
Um, the first point is indeed we're finding spike protein in the wounds in the autopsies. There's no question
Right.
there, but we're finding spike protein like you would find dolls in if somebody sent a missile on a plant fabricating dolls. Okay, it doesn't mean that
Okay.
dolls. You set a missile on a on a on a plant that's fabricating dolls. You will find a hole there, and you'll find a doll there. It doesn't mean the doll is caused it. Okay, that's the first point.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And second point, first of all, spike. You have to realize that nobody's been doing the quantifications. So spike is not very dangerous. I mean, the, the SARS-CoV-2 is not a very dangerous virus.
Right.
Okay, so this whole spike thing is a hoax from A to Z.
Mm.
But let me explain. Spike is the antigen. Okay,
Right.
it's the reason why T cells attack. Okay, so
Right.
it is part of the process, but it's not circulating spike that's harmful because
Mm.
the quantities are extremely small.
Hmm.
Now, what are the quantities? Because we need to talk real numbers. I'm a sorry.
Oh, please. Go ahead.
um, the um, the numbers exactly show, yeah, that one. The uh, the numbers, the maximum number of spike
Right.
protein found in an individual
Right.
uh, in a study today comes
Right.
from Juncker et al. In their exhibits, and it's 115 picograms per ml of blood.
That's not a lot.
How much is that? That's about 450 million spike proteins per ml. Okay,
Right. Right.
that could sound a lot or not. I mean, it's for people, but what you need to understand is how many antibodies, natural
Right.
antibodies, do we have,
Right.
and specific antibodies in
Hmm.
front of that. Okay, you have
Hmm.
450 million, and you have 850 trillion natural antibodies and 31 trillion specific antibodies.
Oh.
In the worst case, okay, and
Oh.
only during one day. After that, it's more than
Wow.
that.
Hmm.
This worst case scenario is you have 2 million natural antibodies playing tag football with that spike protein.
Hmm.
Not only that, but in 99% of the case, the spike protein isn't even close to the endothelium. It's
Hmm.
inside the lumen.
Oh.
So when you do the statistics of spike protein probability of actually just connecting to a receptor on a cell
Right.
is zero. It's,
Hmm.
it's literally, I don't know, it's like 10 minus 16 chance of opportunities. It's zero. So even if there is one that tags it on, it's actually completely clotted with natural antibody that would stop it from entering. And
Hmm.
if even if it did enter, one would enter, but not many would enter, and I don't think it would do much damage.
Hmm.
Moreover, so that's physically impossible. But the remember the observation of foci.
Right.
Spike protein is liberated in the bloodstream asynchronously in different places, depending on T cells attacking and apoptosing, destroying contaminated cells.
Hmm.
So basically, it's homogeneous. You cannot have a huge bolus of spike protein. It's just impossible. Okay? And therefore, if, I mean, I'm not saying that spike protein can't be toxic, but it needs to be 6 orders of magnitudes higher.
Hmm.
And by the way, all the toxicology studies that everybody's been using
Right.
have have used concentrations at that level.
Hmm.
They haven't used concentrations in picograms. They've used them in micrograms. That's actually 6 orders of magnitude higher.
Hmm. Okay. So you're saying this, the quantities you're saying are simply not sufficient, as well as the entry into the tissue is not likely. So for those
I,
two
it,
reasons, concentration and delivery.
it's we're not even talking about the tissue. This is you have the endothelium
Right.
between the tissue. So it's not. What you're seeing in the autopsies and the biopsies and what people are suffering from
Yes.
are their own. And by the way, that's true for viruses. By the way, it's the same
Right.
problem.
Right.
Is this it's the aftermath of the scuttling of,
Hmm.
of our immune system reacting and destroying everything that's reacting. And
Hmm.
that's extremely important in terms of understanding illnesses, including with a virus. If a virus penetrates, people, for example, had with COVID,
Right.
they lost sense of taste and they lost sense of smell.
Wasn't that an
Why?
induced zinc deficiency?
It's no, it's because at the entry point,
Right.
the viruses enter in group and then they propagate.
Right.
So at the entry point, they can actually cause concentrated damage.
Hmm.
Right? So in the lungs, they can just, it's extremely dangerous to have if your immune system is not on par,
Right.
that's extremely dangerous.
Right.
In the nose, in the mouth, it's not too dangerous either. But also, I was telling you what I was telling you about leaky gut. It's the same thing.
Hmm.
What's dangerous, both to human health, is concentrated damage,
Hmm.
because because our bodies has difficulty fixing that. It can't. It,
Right.
it needs stem cells to come into play, and if ever the damage is too big, it can't repair it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hmm.
Now, as we're talking about concentration and numbers, I think
Right.
maybe we could talk about shedding because it's related to that.
Yeah. And before we get into that,
Okay.
Brett Weinstein,
Yes.
the biologist,
Yeah.
um, he has asserted, I love your opinion on this, Mark, that the mRNA platform, so forcing body cells to produce a foreign protein, is the common thread perhaps of
Mm.
mRNA, guarantees an immune assault on those cells
Yeah.
that are
That's
producing a foreign protein, and that is an unsolvable problem with the mRNA platform. In other words, if you're forcing body cells to produce foreign proteins, any cell that produces any foreign protein is seen as a threat and will be targeted by the immune system, thereby generating what could possibly be, at least in some people, an autoimmune reaction of the immune system targeting those body cells that are producing these foreign proteins. And again, that's an unsolvable problem with that platform. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's I mean, he's read my work. I mean, he's actually
Okay, okay. Yes.
I know. I mean, we haven't spoken, but we've exchanged,
Sure,
and
sure.
he actually quoted my work on Joe Rogan.
Hmm.
So he's both right and wrong.
Okay.
Okay, and for a number of reasons. He's
Yeah,
right. He's obviously right. That's exactly what I've been describing. Okay,
right,
the T cell attacking is what I described. Okay, we're
right.
describing the same thing.
Yep.
I've been saying it for 5 years. He's been saying it for a bit less than, but so he got, and it's same with Robert Malone.
Hmm.
He's been saying it now. So a lot of people are now saying what I've been saying.
Right.
Um, where I corrected recently, in respectfully, Brett, because I really like him a lot. And
Oh, yeah.
I respect
Yep.
everybody, but I like Brett. I think he's extremely sharp.
Yep.
Um, I corrected him on two things. On the fact that it's on tissue, in tissue, it's most of the transfection, most of the damage is done on the endothelial layer, as I said, because it's there. Now, it's possible, as I showed in the stem cell example, that in a second phase, the NLP enter the tissue. So that's also possible, okay? But
Hmm.
it's going to be minor compared to the damage on the endothelium.
Oh.
The large when you look at in my in my simulation, and it's always hard to see whether it's completely right or not. But it's directionally, I benchmarked it and it was fairly good. There was about in the first hour about 10 million cells that are transfected in concentration in the
Hmm.
first hour. But
Hmm.
40% of those cells were concentrated on the aorta and the large arteries.
Wow.
Of,
Wow.
of
Wow.
course.
Huh.
Um, and then everywhere. So yes, Brett is right. I mean, we share that. I think he's been reading my work for some
Yep.
time now.
Yep.
So yes, he's right there. He's wrong that it's not. It's most of the damage is endothelium damage,
Hmm.
and also most of the damage is by um, necrosis by thrombosis. Okay, there's a
Hmm.
ton of damage there that is not related directly to LNP transfection, just by depleting the oxygen and nutrients.
Hmm.
But where I think he's also wrong, or he's missing the thing, it's not limited to mRNA. You have, I mean,
Ah.
attenuated virus vaccines
Right.
also hack cells and also get the proteins to be produced by these cells. There's nothing new to this. What's
Right.
new to the mRNA platform is for the first time we're doing it without actually a virus. We're actually
Hmm.
producing an mRNA, um, and we're producing mRNA in a plasmid, and we've actually created the sequence. But it's just fundamentally there's no difference, and also the bolus and the fact that you stress cells, you can stress cells and kill them, and if you kill them in concentration with a poison, you'll have the same effect.
Yes.
So, for example, a snake bite will do exactly the same thing. Okay,
Hmm.
it'll destroy your lungs, but it'll destroy your heart capillaries just the same.
Right. Right.
Okay, so fundamentally, what's really interesting is my bolus theory is not limited to vaccines. It's not limited to COVID vaccines. It's not limited to mRNA. It's
Right.
not even limited to vaccines. It stems all all the injectables, and that includes viruses, poison, venom, etc.
Hmm.
The same logic applies because if you destroy the endothelium in concentration,
Right.
the immune react the reaction sorry the repair reaction of the body, the mitigation reaction, the
Right.
repair that it's going to processes and are going to be pathological in the same way.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Okay. And yeah, no, so that gets us into something else you wanted to talk about, which was shedding. I just had a
Yes.
question before, if you have time for just a question before we get into that, because that's a
Yeah,
very,
sure.
people ask about this all the time,
Yeah.
shedding and, oh, am I at risk? Um, I mean, Mark, this is very groundbreaking, thinking around this, and your book has done very well, came out a couple of years ago now, and it's caused quite a hubbub, stirring the pot, which is very important. There it is, The Needle Secret. I'm going to give everybody the link in the chat. What is the response of the medical scientific research community to your work? I would think, I would hope that they would say, wow, this is amazing. Let's validate, let's reproduce, let's see if it's reproducible, let's validate, let's confirm, let's falsify, I mean, this is exciting new thinking. Let's go dig in and see what's the response been from the medical and scientific community?
It depends.
Okay.
Um, it depends. The most honest people, like Peter McCullough or Brett
Yeah.
Weinstein, have been extremely positive.
Yep.
Even though I know that they haven't read the book and they haven't gone into detail. A
Right.
lot of them have limited themselves into understanding that they think that it's an IV injection into a vessel. They
Right.
don't understand the pressure gradient. They don't understand that it happens to you know I I forgot to mention there are
Yes.
two studies that showed that almost all the vaccinated had leaky heart capillaries post-vaccine.
Really?
Almost all, yes.
Wow.
Okay, we're not
That'd
talking.
be a pretty big validation there, Mark.
Well, oh, there's more than that. I mean, there's four studies that have tried injecting the product intravenously.
Hmm.
Okay, four,
Hmm.
and they all validate the theory. They all created
Wow.
replicated thrombosis.
Hmm.
They all replicated necrosis, T
Hmm.
cell infiltration, inflammation, everything. It's been tested. And it's interesting. It's because one was done with the Pfizer vaccine in China.
Right.
One was done with the AstraZeneca in I think in Munich.
Right.
Another one was actually done with a different spike. So
Hmm.
with a with a different spike, and they all had the same thing. And one was done also on pigs, and they had the same problems,
Hmm.
exactly the same problem.
Wow.
So it is. I mean, my theory is reproducible.
Right.
What's interesting is it's the only theory that explains why some are harmed and some aren't.
Hmm.
Um, and I also explain, everything. I explain
Right.
osteosclerosis, aneurysm, fistulas, calcification, white clots, as well as all the organ failures and the cancer,
Hmm.
and also everything related to leaky to leaky capillaries and broken
Right.
down blood tissue
So,
barrier.
so what you found, Mark, is that the determinant of whether an individual will be harmed or not has to do with their vascular endothelial health?
Not really.
Okay.
We all have. I mean, there are some.
I just want to make sure I understand, what your research has found of the variation in harm. Like what's
Okay,
account, what's,
okay. The variation in harm is going to be well. First of all, eh, you know, even a smallest bolus can hurt you and kill you. Okay, you
Right.
need, I have a friend who almost died. He had a 1 square millimeter hole into an artery.
Hmm.
That was enough to kill you over, he was leaking and drinking his own blood basically. And
Wow.
over 2 weeks, he was almost dead because
Hmm.
he had basically emptied all his blood.
Hmm.
Um, so sorry, I forgot your question. I went to
Oh,
tangent.
just to encapsulate, you've explained it, but if you could
It
just encapsulate why are some
let's.
people
Oh,
harmed?
it's very. I mean, I forgot to send you some. Once, if you insert the needle,
Right.
right? It's a 1 inch needle. Um, it is large enough that it will cut. That's a certainty. It will cut vessels. It will cut
Hmm.
capillaries.
Yes.
By my calculation, you cut about 4,500 capillaries over one
Oof.
inch.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow.
Then there's two ways you can inject. You can inject slowly,
Right.
right? Or you can inject very rapidly. If you inject
Hmm.
very rapidly, the dose won't have time to enter the tissue and spread across. What
Hmm.
it will do, it will push all the cells, all the vessels, and it will create a bubble, if you will, a bowl of vaccine.
Right.
Here, um, when you extract, and if you extract too quickly the needle, which most people
Right.
have been doing, most injectors, what they did is they went like that. So they
Right.
cut through 4,000 vessels, create that bowl, took it out, and that extra pressure
Hmm.
is going to push back on the needle's track into all those blood vessels.
Hmm.
That's the worst thing you can do
Hmm.
because that's going to create a, you know, added all of the between the pressure,
Right.
the very high pressure, abnormal pressure at the very beginning,
Right.
plus those different sizes of vessels and accumulated. That's going to be a big dose going intravenously.
Yep.
Okay, there's no
Right.
question. It's what people tell me. Well, is has your theory been peer reviewed, or it's been peer reviewed because I sold my book to a few thousand people, and a lot of
Right.
doctors, biologists have
Right.
read it. My Substack is being read by 25,000 people. So
Yes.
it's I believe my work has been reviewed and viewed, but fundamentally I don't need to because it's all my work is based on valid, robust scientific laws. All the
Right.
dominoes, the only conjecture that I put is this generalization in the, evasion by replication in the stem
Right.
cell side. And I've
Right. Right. Right.
actually, but the rest of it, this thing, are you going to cut through vessels if you insert a needle? Okay, that's a certainty. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you're not cutting 4,500. Maybe you're cutting 5,000. Maybe you're cutting 3,000, depending on
Sure. Sure.
who it is. But fundamentally, you are. Are you going to create an extra pressure when you inject into a muscle? Of course. It's actually you
Hmm.
can actually calculate the pressure, and actually some researchers have done that. It's a huge. So
Yeah.
after that, the fact that it goes into is the veins are going to be, or the venules or the capillaries going to be lower pressure? Of course, they're going to be
Right.
lower pressure. Therefore, the liquid is going to go there. That's mechanistic.
Oh, right.
It's
Right.
all mechanistic. There's
Right.
no, I mean, nobody can argue with what I'm saying.
Right.
They
Like you
can
said, it's
argue,
physics.
it's physics.
Yep.
It's physics. After that, the problem is the scenarios, how concentrated it goes. Nobody can simulate that. What I did in my Monte Carlo is I simulated um, where they're going and when they're hitting, and I put some randomness in there.
Hmm.
But 5% of the blood flow outside of after the left ventricle goes to the heart,
Right.
15% goes to the brain, 20% goes to the gut, and 20% goes to the skin.
Right.
Okay, so those are going to be hit by those proportions. The problem is which which one gets hit most for the first bolus, which are bigger and more concentrated.
Oh, right. Right, right, right.
That's random.
Hmm.
What you have to understand is it's crazy. The intramuscular injection and the
Right.
subcutaneous injections are injection technology that are not standardized, right?
Oh, the
Not
technique.
standardized. It's not a standardized technique. Sometimes you're going to cut, sometimes you're going to inject close to a big vessel, sometimes to a small vessel, sometimes you're going to
Right.
be, etc. It's not standardized. It's not calibrated because you don't know if you're going to deliver exactly the same dose in the same amount. You don't.
Right.
Okay? If they're a higher concentration, you're going to transfect more. So it's not calibrated.
Right.
It's not route compliant, sorry. It's not
Right.
route compliant. People, they typically tell you it stays in the muscles, go to the lymph node, and then go slowly. That's not true.
Hmm.
The Acuitas study from 2015 with Mariko and Weissman, the two Nobel Prize who invented this technology,
Right.
okay? Well, if you look at they did that on mice. They did it with intradermal, subcutaneous, intramuscular, intravenous, and inside the peritoneus. And intramuscularly, within 4 hours, all the mice have a huge number. Actually, you have that picture. Um, um, have a huge number of cells that are contaminated outside of the injection zone.
Hmm.
So this is, and that's true also for epinephrine. I've actually used epinephrine to do my
Hmm.
model
Hmm.
because epinephrine is injected intramuscularly and it leaks immediately into the vascular system.
Right.
And within an hour, most of the dose goes IV. So
Hmm.
that's a very big deal if you're dealing with a product which is cytotoxic.
Yes.
Yeah, these are the three experiences that the first three, there's another one since then,
Yep.
that are independent, peer reviewed, and have shown that the COVID vaccine with different technologies have actually systematically harmed the mice when injected intravenously.
Hmm.
But I also shared with you that's not something new. I mean, a century ago, by mistake, some people injected intravenously anti-typhoid vaccines, and what happened? They had thrombosis. So
Oh.
okay, that's why they
Hmm.
invented the aspiration technique.
Hmm.
Okay, the aspiration technique was invented because we know there's a risk of intramuscular injection.
Right.
The problem is when they got rid of the aspiration technique, they also accelerated the injection. And
Oh.
in my opinion, based on my model, etc., when that happens, um, then you have more accidents. Yes, that's the 1915, sorry, 2015
Hmm.
study from Acuitas done by Mariko and Weissman
Right.
of the technology. And if you look, based on that, they should have done intradermal. The
Oh.
only one, if you look at intradermal, which is actually
Right.
what my friend used, intradermal is much better because you could lower the dose and it doesn't leak as much.
Hmm.
Okay, you can see it stays at the injection point, and
Hmm.
it's extremely slow. Whereas intramuscular, within 4 hours, the lungs and the liver are hit.
Hmm.
You can see. Look at that picture. You can see it's massive, huh? It's not
Yep. And
it's
Mark,
not
could
small.
you just explain? They've got some abbreviations up here just for our listeners. Just let us know what we're looking at here.
So you're looking intradermal delivery,
Yep.
day one, day two, 4 hours, 1 hour, 2 hours. Sorry, yeah, 4 hours, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days.
Right.
Okay. ID is intradermal delivery.
Yep.
IM is intramuscular.
Right.
SC is subcutaneous. IP is peritoneal, and
Yep.
IV is IV.
So what's the difference between intradermal and subcutaneous?
It's not in the same area.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So intradermal is less vascularized.
That's the most superficial, I would think.
It's the most superficial. It's also where there's more immune cell. I mean,
Okay.
that's where you should be doing it anyhow. That's a
Interesting.
different story.
Yeah.
That's completely different story. But what I mean
Right.
is, these researchers, they were more interested in where to demonstrate that their technology was working. They're excited, they were all excited by it was
Okay.
doing that.
Right.
And then they've been using intramuscular injection at Pfizer and Moderna. I
Hmm.
had studied that way before COVID, and
Hmm.
it's completely stupid. It's stupid because that's not the way you can actually. It's dangerous, as it's shown, but also it's stupid because that's not where the immune system is. The immune system you
Hmm.
want to go. So they could probably take a dose that's 1,000 times lower, inject intradermally, and have the same results.
Wow. Wow. Interesting.
It's not. That's both a scientific mistake, but also a security mistake, a safety mistake, a huge safety.
Interesting. Hmm.
Um,
Cool.
yeah,
So
have
that
I
gets us
spoke?
to the shedding question.
Oh my God, shedding capillary. Yes, yes. When um, when I debunked the spike protein
Right?
a few years ago.
Yep.
And I also basically debunked shedding. I basically said it's impossible that you're shedding a spike
Right?
because the quantities are way too small. Um,
Oh,
and um, and it's also impossible that you're shedding um, lipid nanoparticles because they're too big and it's
oh,
too transient,
huh.
right? Um, so of course you can shed some of it, but it's not going to have, even if you shed some of it, notably in sperm or in the saliva, whatever,
Right?
it's going to be in concentration that are going to be so small that there's no way they can, you know, if it doesn't hurt the host, every time you shed, you dilute, right? And
Right.
this is what I'm showing here. The um, there's one level of shedding which happens when you're breathing, notably through the nose, right?
Right?
So you're shedding into the air. But when you're doing that, you probably have a dilution from blood to the mucosa, which is like a 5,000 or 6,000 or 10,000 dilution,
Hmm.
right? And then you actually shed it into the air and you dilute it a million times,
Hmm.
right? So you can have, and so it was clearly not spike protein and clearly not, but a lot of people reacted and said, "Are you saying I'm a liar?" It was very interesting, and
Right.
and and I never, first of all, I respect people always. I try to
Sure.
be as cordial and I'm one of the
Yes.
rare guys who stayed cordial.
Yes.
Um, but I also always try to keep an open mind and say, well, if you're telling me you've suffered something, you've suffered something.
Sure. Sure.
I'll look into it and I'll try and understand what you've suffered. And at the time, I created a questionnaire for people to answer, and it was very clear um, that it was for the unvaccinated, no, not just for the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
Um, and it was very clear that a lot of people were impacted, and that was real.
Yeah.
So shedding happened, but what was also very clear that it was proteins. It was sorry,
Huh.
hormones. It was
Oh,
hormones.
okay.
It was hormones, and notably, one of the most notable example of hormone was decidual casts, which is typically very rare and exploded at post-vaccine. And decidual cast is really hormone progesterone in the semen
Right.
um, during intercourse that are exchanged. So you have a huge concentration of progesterone that has leaked into semen, and
Oh.
is delivered during intercourse to the women.
Hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was very clear that it could happen,
Hmm.
and it fits very well with my, my leaking of my blood tissue barrier breakdown
Right.
in endocrine. Right, it fits perfectly. Um, and what I did after that is I tried to understand the different ways you could shed. You could shed, for example, via mouth-to-mouth contact when you're kissing,
Right.
um, by an exchange of saliva. But if you look, for example, I did it with spike protein, right? Depending on the types of leaks you have or not inside the mouth,
Right.
you end up with 45,000 spike per ml or a million spike per ml,
Hmm.
right? So that's what you have in your mouth. So when you exchange that, you divide that by two. Let's say that saliva blend, and there's one for two. So you divide them, you get to 22,000 to 500,000 spike. But then you need to absorb it, and it's still and that's diluted 5,000 times at least, uh,
Oh, I see.
if not 10,000 times by the volume, 5 liters of blood.
Right.
So you end up between having 2 spike per ml to 100 spike per ml. If 450 million spike per ml is not pathogenic, I don't see how 100 of them is pathogenic.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Okay.
So it can be
Hmm.
spike. But if you
Yep.
go back to that other infographic with this, okay. So here, there's fundamentally two two things that are particularly can be particularly dangerous or painful. The most dangerous shedding is actually the fact that a breastfeeding mother,
Right.
would have blood milk barrier breakdown, and
Oh.
therefore the milk would not be filtered. The
Oh.
elements in the milk will not be filtered. So they would be toxic by definition,
Hmm.
right? And in theirs, you will find a number of women or doctors who have actually declared these issues, right?
Hmm.
And you can kill the newborn with that. Okay, so
Hmm.
that's in my view, that's the most dangerous one.
Right.
The other one, the one I was telling you about, is a progesterone leak in the semen that goes and creates a very painful um, uh, decidual cast, during unprotected sex.
Hmm.
Okay, and then there is a third mechanism, which is the contamination of the air.
Hmm.
Um, and here, my analogy is the analogy of smoking. If if you do one puff and you blow in this room, somebody's going to smell something, but it's not going to be massive. It's not going to have an impact. But if
Right.
you stay 2 hours smoking, the end of the 2 hours, this room will be filled with smoke, and you won't even be able to
Hmm.
see me, right?
Hmm.
So the same thing happens if you're together with somebody who's been vaccinated and is
Right.
leaking hormones. That person is going to breathe out hormones into the air and increase the concentration in the air if the air is not ventilated.
Hmm.
Okay, that can happen one to one, or that can happen also in a wedding, in a church, in
Right.
in in an office where there are
Yes.
multiple people during a period of time after vaccine where they were leaking. That's transient, by the way. They were leaking hormones. That's very clearly what happened to people. And
Hmm.
someone, they had varicosis. I had another gentleman telling me that when his wife had her menstruation, he felt something. His mood was he had mood swings, etc. So there is shedding is real. It's just not spike. It's not the vaccine.
Interesting. So there's not enough spread of the actual mRNA in the
No,
lipid nanoparticle,
no,
and
it's yeah, yeah.
and there's insufficient spread at concentration of the spike.
Yeah, it's
That
impossible.
if something's going to be transmitted, shared at physiological concentrations, perhaps it would be endocrine.
Yeah, it's hormonal. It's the
Yeah.
same phenomenon that happens with nuns in convents,
Right.
who synchronize their menstruation.
Oh yeah, high school, I mean, college dorm women as well, I believe.
Yeah. I think I hadn't heard of that, but yeah, it's the same thing.
Okay.
It's a form
Wow.
of pheromone shedding in a way.
Right, right.
Um, so that's the explanation.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe we can. Do you have any questions?
No, our listeners do have a couple of questions for you because this is
Sure.
an amazing download, Mark. Thank you. And I just want to make sure you've shared everything you want to share today. So Sabine
Well,
is asking, uh, yeah, I know, we definitely want to do that. If you don't mind, just a couple of
yeah,
questions, and I
sure,
want to
of
make
course.
sure you've shared everything you want to share today. Sabine is asking, I would like to know what is on the chart on Mark's wall to your
Ah,
left.
so I have. You can't see, but I have. So I'm actually staying at. I'm homeless because I've worked pro bono for 6 years now.
Oh boy.
So I don't rent a place, and I'm
Sure.
homeless. But I'm very lucky to have my best friend has a countryside house that's beautiful, and I have so what you have on the walls here is actually what I explained to you. It's
Oh,
IV injections. It's actually there's other things behind, um, but that's what I explained to you today.
okay.
Um, I'm not so sure what's behind. Here, there's something about my book. There's an article on Ebola also because I'm also working on Ebola to see that to because it's a scam. It's another scam. It's exactly the same thing.
Yes.
And I have here. I have something on cross organ stem cell repair,
Wow.
and that how that relates to metastasis,
Hmm.
which is something we might want to talk about later.
Sure. Thank you. And Chet is asking, Mark, so you're saying that if they start using inhaled vaccines instead of injections, that clots and injuries would be eliminated? That's
No,
his question. Okay.
that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
Well, first of all, inhaling it sometimes actually gets into the bloodstream faster.
Hmm. I would
So you
think
have
so. Through the
uh,
lungs, the alveoli.
no, even in the nose,
Oh,
there the nose
mucosal.
and
Okay.
mucosal. I think it's more mucosal.
Hmm.
So that's the first problem. It's not straightforward.
Right.
And second, if ever you actually deliver it in the lungs in concentration, your immune system is going to destroy your lungs.
Hmm.
Not exactly a great idea.
No.
No, you don't want.
Wow.
And they've had problems, by the way. They've tried and they've had issues.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
you could try it intranasally, but there are issues there. Um, I I think the best, and still needs to be tested. It's not for me to decide that, but from what I've been seeing, it's intradermal, slow. If you would do a slow injection intradermally,
Right.
and then wait some time for the dose to diffuse in the skin, and
Right.
then take out the needle, I
Right.
think that would actually Probably reduce the damage by 99.99%.
Wow. Mark, could you just please repeat that one more time? Because that was significant.
Um, I think if I were in a position, if I were, for example, Secretary Kennedy,
Sure.
I would immediately today ask all the doctors who are doing vaccines
Right?
to do them intradermally,
Hmm.
to inject them extremely slowly, so not like that, but
Right.
very slowly, to wait, so wait before pulling off the needles,
Hmm.
that the dose actually spreads across the skin,
Hmm.
and then slowly take off the needle.
Wow.
What that would do is, first of all, it would limit the risk of if ever you're in a needle, in a, sorry, in a vessel.
Right?
Um, it would limit the first bolus that's related to a very quick injection and a bubble being created inside the skin,
Right.
and then everything leaking it through a few vessels. And if ever there's a big one, it can be dangerous. The
Hmm.
fundamental thing is there's no injection that's 100% safe, but if
Right.
you want to make it much safer, that's the way I would do it.
And Mark, I just want to underline something. We've been talking a lot about COVID injections and mRNA platform, but your theory, your model really encompasses all vaccines of any kind because
I
there's always a delivery of adjuvant and antigen and everything else that's in the vial of any vaccine,
of any vaccines and any injectables.
any injectables.
Yes,
Hmm.
actually, a lot of injectables are, are tested that way. But for example, I think vitamin K
Right?
can cause issues in newborns.
I think it does. I think that happened to my
Well,
son.
well, that's most likely what happened.
Hmm.
So, of course, vitamins versus a cytotoxic product is not the same risk profile.
Right.
Okay, it's not the same risk profile. It's like, it's like I don't know, black mamba venom and a bee venom. Both can
Right.
kill you, but not they're
Right.
not the probabilities are not exactly the same.
Right.
So some people have. My wife was telling me, my wife's Canadian. She
Hmm.
had friends come to Paris recently, and and that person was getting peptide injections, and
Yes.
their veins were calcified.
Oh, wow. So that
Um,
that that in a sense kind of helps validate your theory,
oh, I mean, look, I don't want to sound arrogant, but my job as a consultant
right?
is to destroy concepts and theories. Okay, that's
Okay.
what we do for a living. No, but
Assumptions. Yeah.
that's what we do for a living.
Right.
I don't think
Challenging
there's anything in
assumptions.
my life that I'm more certain of.
Hmm.
Okay,
Amazing.
there's not, because it's it's um, it's mechanistic. It's based. It's repeatedly. I have
Yeah.
In the past 5 years, I started this theory. The first ideas 5 years ago.
Hmm.
Actually, more than 5 years ago now. First
Hmm.
elements. Um, it's become stronger rather than weaker.
Hmm. Wow.
Actually, even the cancer bit. I originally thought that all the cells were destroyed by the first phase, by the fact that T cells were attacking. I had forgotten
Oh,
that T cells were immune privileged. And one day when I started looking into the fact that people were getting cancer, I said, well, something
right.
doesn't add up.
Hmm.
There's a discrepancy here. And then one day I had this aha moment, said, of course, stem cells and progenitor cells. And if you look at that picture, there's actually a ton of literature in the past 20 years that points to stem cells being the cancer cell of origin. There's tons of it.
Right. Yeah, I
Yes.
just I just taught that actually. I was teaching about herbs alongside chemotherapy and radiation. Because I'm very much on the clinical side, not the
Mm.
research side, and also education. And that's a huge thing right now. Is this cancer stem cell, the CSC, becoming a primary concern with cancer treatment because the stem cells, if they're not addressed, will um, you're not going to have a lasting solution to that cancer unless
Well,
the cancer stem cells are addressed.
yeah, and I believe that that's why I believe some of the some of some ivermectin and the antiparasitic treatments
Oh,
work.
right. Yes. What's your
Uh,
thought on that?
Um, I truly believe that they work. I think oxygen also works very well.
Yes.
And here's why. I think fundamentally, if you can force the stem cells that have been contaminated to differentiate,
Right?
when they differentiate,
They're less
they're going to
aggressive.
no, when they
No.
differentiate, they're going to be visible to your immune system.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Okay.
in the end, it's all
Okay.
in the end,
Wow.
it's your own
Wow.
body that fixes this,
Yes.
whichever way. I know I had my wife had a Ukrainian friend last year who when she met her, she said, "Well, you don't seem well," and she had stage 4 cancer.
Oh,
I had a spare oxygen concentrator.
right?
And I lent it to her. I said, look, take it and start now
Yeah.
doing 4 hours of oxygen therapy, of normal baric oxygen therapy, just breathing pure oxygen,
Yeah.
90% oxygen. She didn't do anything for the first week, and but she had 2 blood work done during that week.
Hmm.
After only 4 days of oxygen therapy, her biomarker for cancer were down 23%.
Oh, wow.
So it
Hmm.
might be anecdotal, I'm not saying, but
No, anecdotes are evidence, as Mark
yeah,
Hyman would say.
uh, I think that anything that's going to target stem cells are going to work.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is you need to flush that surplus. That's what you need
Hmm.
to do. But you
Hmm.
need to watch out because you don't want to kill your mothership, that
Right.
hasn't been contaminated, so that it can be replaced after that.
Well, let me show you, if I could just play a short video here, Mark. This is an oxidative treatment, which focuses on microcirculation. This is a microcirculation treatment. And what you're going to see on the left, this is a 37-year-old male. This is intravital microscopy, so live video, in this case in the colon, of the microcirculation. And you're going to see an arteriole with a branching capillary
Okay.
and the effects of the physical vascular therapy, the microcirculation enhancement using a pulsed electromagnetic field of the microcirculation. So I'm just going to just make sure this is set up properly.
Does that stimulate stem cells
Well,
and
that's the
endothelial
theory
stem
is,
cells?
well, right. The
Yeah.
theory is like we know, okay, let me just show it to you. And so you have on the, this is on the left is pre-treatment. On the right is after the full
Yeah.
treatment, which is 8 minutes of this particular PEMF signal, improving arterial or vasomotion, probably positively affecting the endothelial glycocalyx. And you
Right.
just see this massive increase in blood flow and therefore oxygenation
Mm.
before and after this 8 minute treatment. You'll see on the this is the arterial and this is the capillary,
Capillary. Yeah.
right, which is branching off the arterial. And so, and again, this is a healthy 37-year-old male, athletic, no disease, no conditions, no issues. He's just super stressed. And we know that stress has a profound effect on microcirculation and therefore oxygenation.
Sorry.
And so you see that the difference is profound. So the idea here, the theory is that with that amount of oxygen getting delivered that much better, that you're going to have an improvement in mitochondrial function, stem cell activity,
Well,
tissue
yeah.
repair, all of that.
Well, in my book, in The Needle Secret, there's a whole part hyperbaric oxygen therapy
Mm.
and normal baric oxygen therapy. What was interesting during my research was I, I sort of played ball between uh, treatments and cancer, and because of stem
Mm.
cells. And when I started the book, I was somewhat distressed because I couldn't. I knew that how to fix the problem in terms of stopping harm,
Right.
but I didn't have solutions for the people who were injured. And my sister was injured, and
Mm.
many of my friends are injured.
Oh, sorry.
And and um, and when I investigated stem cells during the cancer thing, that's when I fell on oxygen therapy. It just so I happened to have worked for an oxygen company. I sold oxygen.
Oh, okay.
I sold ozone, not for health, but I worked for that company that did sell health, and
Sure.
so I was pretty. It made it all coalesce together, and so what's what is amazing is that some of my readers have had enormous successes and improvements in their conditions
Right.
following reading my book, um, and sometimes I share the science I've discovered. I don't advise. I'm not a doctor, but
Sure.
I do explain what likely happened to them based
Right.
on my theory, which is science based. Um, and one of my readers, uh, Willem in New Zealand, he had catastrophic health condition. He
Oh.
following the vaccines. He took two vaccines. The first one he was harmed. Took a second. He had a stroke.
Oh.
He had alopecia. He
Oh
had
no.
POTS. He
Mm.
had um, eczema all across the body, intestinal disorders. He had what they call COVID toes, basically
Mm.
purple toes. And and he read my book, read my Substack, and he bought an oxygen, a hyperbaric tent. So it's a mild
Yes.
hyperbaric oxygen tent,
Yes.
1.5 atmospheres.
Sure.
And during 10 days, he did an hour and a half during 10 days. After
Right.
10 days, he reached out to me and says, Mark, I'm almost cured.
Wow.
He wasn't cured because he hadn't fixed POTS.
Right.
And actually, he continued. He improved considerably his solution. Not everything is fixed because some of the necrosis is not necessarily fixable. Okay,
Right.
but he fixed a lot of things, and it was a very interesting. I do science and I try to understand things,
Yeah.
and I have actually I should have sent you this, but this is a framework of my theory. All the different um, ways of the mechanisms of harm
Sure.
of the theory that I've explained to you today.
Right.
And so I said, well, you still have POTS occasionally, and how come, what's going wrong? Why did oxygen therapy didn't work? Why hasn't it revascularized?
Right.
Whatever it's supposed to revascularize. And it was like 6 months later, so I said, can we have a conversation? I'd like to get to the bottom of this.
Yes.
And we spent 2 hours together, and the first 30 minutes we were like, I was trying to understand. I said, how many sessions you had? He had a huge, I think he had 150 hours of oxygen therapy.
Mm.
I said, that's way enough to cure just about everything.
Right.
So I looked at my framework, and I realized that the only thing that wasn't fixable by oxygen therapy is actually white clots
Mm.
or
Hmm.
arteriosclerosis, but white clots. And
Hmm.
and then I had an aha moment. I said, "Well, you were hit in the legs because you have these COVID toes.
Right.
Uh, Therefore, wouldn't it be possible that you have white clots in the legs, in the arteries,
Oh,
and that's
okay.
stopping, and the clots are stopping you from uh, from constricting, and therefore every time you stand up, you faint.
Hmm.
Um, and he said, interesting. And I said, have you, a lot of people have tried nattokinas, a lot of people have
Right.
tried bromelain and other.
Well, what's your thought on that?
Well, my thought is it can fix very well white clots and arteriosclerosis,
Right.
but but there's two buts.
Okay.
There's a safety but.
Right.
You shouldn't do that. I mean, right now, 5 years down the road, you can probably do it. Okay.
Right.
But a few years down the road, you might have white clots that haven't, you still might have white clots and might have a leak behind.
Hmm.
That's what happened to Steve Kirch.
Oh.
Steve had his eye problem. He lost an eye. I don't know whether
Oh.
when after 2 years he took nattokinase for 2 weeks.
Right.
So he bled in his eye.
Hmm.
Remember, it's a clot. There's a reason there's a clot.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So so if you want to be logical, you need to go back to. I don't need to convince anybody. I don't need to advise any. I need to go back to the natural process. The
Right.
natural process is coagulation, repair, and then use of fibrinolytic agents to get rid of the Band-Aid.
Hmm.
Right? So first you need to do the repair. That's where oxygen therapy comes in,
Right.
hyperbaric or normal baric oxygen therapy, or other therapies. There's numerous therapies that can work for stem cell stimulation. DMSO
Right.
does that, ivermectin does that, methylene blue does that,
Hmm.
walking does that,
Sure.
luminotherapy, light therapy, red light therapy does that.
Yep.
Um, all sorts of things around reflexology in the feet. There's tons. What I'm working on studying the body as pools of stem cells you can leverage.
Hmm.
And when you think about it, natural medicine,
Right.
what it's been doing for millennials,
Right.
is not knowingly stimulating stem cells in a variety of ways. So acupuncture
Hmm.
does that.
Hmm.
Um, Fasting does that marvelously.
Hmm.
I don't believe in, I don't know about autophagy, but I think what really is happening in fasting
Right.
is that you have this organ to organ or bone marrow to organ stem cell re- collaboration.
Hmm.
Um, and and the biggest, there are two pools, there are huge big pools of stem cells in the body.
Right.
Okay, the biggest one is the bone marrows,
Right.
hematopoietic stem cells. Of course, there are huge number there.
Right.
And then there's the guts,
Oh.
the
Okay.
intestinal stem cells, because
Yep.
your intestines are regenerated every 3 to 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
That's right.
if when you fast, the stem cells are still stimulated,
Right.
but there's nothing to replace.
Hmm.
So my take is that these cells are actually first used to repair whatever is happening. Actually, interestingly, people who are hyper obese, for example,
Right.
if when they take low diet smoothies, etc., after
Right.
3 months, their intestines are repaired.
Yes.
So my take is that this is how it works. But what's interesting also is the red meat diet
Right.
does the same thing. A
Hmm.
red meat diet fasts the long intestine, the large intestine,
Okay.
because a red meat diet uses the small intestines.
Right.
Most of everything is digested there,
Right.
and doesn't need the fermentation aspect of it. And
Hmm.
therefore, that's why, I mean, I've discovered that a few months ago. Actually, it's a hypothesis, but I think it's actually makes sense.
Right.
I was wondering why some people we're having amazing results with red meat diets,
Yes.
repairing, for example, type 2 diabetes. I was like, it's not the red meat. The red meat, it's not what the red meat does. It's what the red meat doesn't do. And
Okay. Which is the fermentation.
which is exactly the fermentation.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if it leaves the intestines pool of stem cells idle, they can concentrate back to repairing the rest of the body. And I'm working on stuff like that today to try it. And well, first of all, what's really interesting is putting science into natural medicine, which is which is going to be interesting because it's going to shut off all the people talking about allopathic medicine and saying it's not scientific. But when
Okay.
you think about it, whichever way you find, the only thing that can repair you are your own stem cells, nothing
Right.
else,
Right.
right? So
And
whether
they need nutrition to work. Like you have to have adequate nutrition.
yeah, of course, but
Yeah.
even with adequate nutrition, it's only your stem cells that can do that,
Right.
right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So it's all about harnessing your stem cells. It's all about that, and that's what, interestingly enough, when you it most of the uh, all the old age natural medicine,
Right.
what they've been doing is that green
Hmm.
tea is stimulating intestinal stem cells.
Right.
Over there, sorry, over there. Sunlight therapy. What is sunlight therapy? It's stimulating stem cells. It's creating a stress that's like the sun, but
Right.
not burning the skin.
Hmm.
Heat therapy, cryogenic therapy, same thing. Um, if you look at what else is there? Massage, reflexology is
Sure.
stimulating stem cells in the feet.
Right.
Walking, same thing. Even didgeridoo, the Australian
Oh yeah.
medicine through
Yeah.
sound. Well, what
Oh,
is it
okay.
doing? It's vibration.
Hmm.
Vibration is stimulating stem cells. And by the
Hmm.
way, what you were showing, the electricity or magnetic fields, etc.,
Yeah,
same things.
that's the Beamer PEMF device.
It's doing the same thing. It's stimulating stem cells in a
Hmm.
way that doesn't destroy them. So what you're
Oh.
doing
Huh.
is you're stimulating stem cells enough without destroying anything.
Hmm.
In a way, sports that's not like, of course, a marathon is going to destroy your body. It's not good for you. But sports is good for you because it's stimulating stem cells.
Yes. Wow.
That's the only
That,
reason.
that's excellent. And we've got a question here from Carol. So if shedding is hormonal, why do nicotine patches seem to be protective?
Because most likely because nicotine patches are stimulating stem cells.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting. All right. And then there's a whole big craze, not craze, but there's more going on now with stem cell injections and stem cell this and that. I had that done on my knee to try to avoid surgery with a lot of, sports injury. What's your opinion on this increased interest in stem cell therapy?
So first of all, I've been following that for a very long time. So
Hmm.
it just so happened I was fascinated by that a long time ago.
Yes,
I
yes.
looked into it for my book, and I don't feel comfortable.
Oh, wow. Okay, please explain.
Uh, well, because cancer.
Oh,
Very simple.
huh.
You really need to, you're tinkering, you know, stem cells are, you can find them in everywhere. You can find them in fats. You can find them everywhere. You have some circulating in the blood, etc. But
Right?
I find it. I think I prefer the natural method.
Yes.
Um, and the most effective one
Right?
is a systemic one with hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
Hmm.
Why? Because it uses the lungs, which is a huge exchange chamber. It's meant for oxygen for gas exchanges,
Right?
and of course it sends it across the body, and there's a ton of experience with it. I mean, it's hyperbaric oxygen therapy has been done for a very long time. The problem is that in the U.S. it's extremely expensive. In Europe it's not that expensive. I mean, it's less expensive. It's like 50 euros an hour. I think in the US it's like 100, 250 or something.
Right.
It's
Right.
ridiculous numbers, which is out, which is a ripoff. Um, but I know some people who mutualized a hyperbaric tent, for example, to
Mm-hmm.
buy one if you can't afford it. But
Yeah.
that's obviously the one that works best. Now the problem is I've had one person who had issues with the epithelial. You need to
Right.
understand that the oxygen um, is what triggers the skin. You know, when the skin starts fading away, it's the oxygen that triggers stem cell to replicate the keratocytes and stuff like that.
Hmm. Okay.
Some people have issues with epithelium and with alveoli where oxygen might not be the right way.
Hmm.
But it's a rare case. It's related to the place where the leak is.
Oh,
Uh, but in most cases, it works extremely well and cures Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, ALS.
right.
Um, uh, it, and I think a lot of people are going to need. Actually, I was on the phone with a friend of my wife who's vaccine injured, and I was telling her that recently, earlier today, that the real issue is that neurodegenerative disease and
Right.
also heart disease or potentially heart failure
Right.
are two things that are the big risk in the next, because of low stem cell, uh, in those areas.
Right.
And so you really need, I think a lot of people are going to need to actually make sure that either they have an hygiene, they walk a lot, or they figure out ways over the long term, or they do hyperbaric oxygen therapy or normal baric oxygen therapy, so that they repair their blood-brain barrier.
Hmm.
Because Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, etc., when you investigate it, and I've investigated deeply,
Yeah.
all related to leaky blood-brain barriers.
Hmm.
Depending on where the leak is,
Hmm.
you have, if it's the gray and white matter, it's Alzheimer's. If it's the basal ganglia, it's going to be Parkinson. If
Right.
it's in the CNS, it's ALS, etc.
Hmm.
So it's really the leak. And it makes sense. I mean, you take out something that's so tight, and it's going to be pathological. And
Right.
it works really well. I mean, the repair works extremely well. Oxygen therapy works extremely well, but also DMSO works well for that. And I'm sure many other things. I think vitamin C also most likely does that. So
Hmm.
what you're trying to do is stimulate stem cells without harming the body.
Right. Well, that's why I mean, that's why and this is very much what you're saying is in the literature. I just taught this presentation not too long ago on the relationship of microvascular dysfunction and all of the neurodegenerative conditions,
Yes, of
Alzheimer's,
course. No,
Parkinson's.
I'm not. I didn't invent this, huh, by the way.
Right, right, right. So,
I,
I agree with you. I think anything that gets more oxygen and more blood flow and healthier endothelium, microvasculature, endothelial glycocalyx is going to be very important. And so I think that's critical. The hyperbaric oxygen, we had a doctor speak at one of our retreats, or annual retreat for practitioners, talking about this, and it does become a bit of an access issue, and what I've seen is the hyperbaric oxygen is it can be excellent and it doesn't necessarily improve microvascular blood flow. I think if we can restore that, and that's what this guy,
It does normally. It
oh,
should
it does
normally.
normally. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it
That's,
should. It
that's what
should.
Dr. Oh, okay.
It should revascularize. It
Oh,
revascularizes.
okay. Okay,
But I
great.
mean, if you have, I mean, if you have necros, it should revascularize
Right,
necrotized tissue. There's, for
right,
example, autistic children after HBOT have actually improved their
right. I
cognitive
saw that
ability by
study.
30%.
Yes.
That's
Yeah, I
huge.
saw that
Well,
study.
the cognitive ability means that there's been revascularization and creation of neurons.
Right. That's great. So I'm just going to give folks the link. I put together a page on this microvascular therapy and it's a home care, something that people can just use at home. And for the whole family, it's 8 minutes twice a day. And long term, and I agree with you that completely. The cost can be prohibitive of long-term hyperbaric oxygen
I
treatment.
use, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, no, go right
I,
ahead.
I use an oxygen concentrator.
Oh, okay, great, great.
It's
Yeah,
just
so,
slower. It's just much slower,
yep,
but you don't have the problem of some people have ear problems, the
right,
pressure. It's kind of, I mean, you could actually, you have it. Many people who have pulmonary issues use it at work, etc. It's very easy.
yes, great,
It's not as expensive. I bought mine,
right.
I think $600 or something like
Oh,
that.
okay, okay, great,
Um,
great.
and same thing.
So this is an educational page we put together on the microvascular restoration, the physical vascular
Interesting.
therapy as a home care device that long term, is going to be more affordable than long term
It,
HBOT.
it's and you pass it on your body or in different areas
Yeah,
or
it's a mat, and it's also a seat.
oh, it's a mat.
I'm
Okay.
sitting on it now. There's a seat cushion that
Okay.
delivers the microvascular optimization. While you're sitting at your desk, you have a lot of these circulation problems from
Yeah, of
sitting a
course.
lot.
Yeah.
So this is a home care device that's designed like specifically for that purpose of
Interesting.
restoring microvascular circulation and therefore tissue oxygenation. There's 72 studies specifically using this device.
Interesting.
And yeah, it's a bit of an investment, but long term, it's quite a bit less than kind of long term hyperbaric, which I think is great, by the way. And it's just a matter of okay, well, how can you treat everybody at home in an effective, validated
Yeah.
way, long term. So anyway, folks can see all the information there and the studies and all that. So, first of all, as we wrap up today, Mark, any final thoughts that you had for our listeners for you to feel complete today? This has been amazing.
Um, well, we haven't spoken about um, injections into pregnant women.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
I think that's been kind of criminal because the
so, um,
safety studies just aren't
so
there.
I have investigated that and I looked
Oh,
into that, and evidently there is the same problem.
right.
So, and that's criminal, okay?
Yeah.
Because then the baby becomes a bit like an organ,
Hmm.
right? Or a stem cell. It's he or she, and the infant is protected.
Right.
Um, I would encourage people to not. Yeah, that's my French. That's the French book
Yeah, that's
in
great.
French. So evidently, if you're a pregnant woman, you shouldn't get shots, or if you get
Right.
shots, get them the way I said. So very,
Right.
very slowly, and with not getting the getting the needle out immediately and waiting.
Hmm.
That's the and the other point that I haven't touched upon is many people have had reproductive issues,
Hmm.
and evidently what I've discussed touches on that. It touches on that at an hormonal issue and at a reproductive issue. You can have necrosis of testes, you can have
Hmm.
necrosis of ovaries, You
Right.
have calcifications there. You can have um, you can have leaky elements, and if you have leaky testis, for example, you'll have low sperm count, etc. So
Mm.
everything that I've said applies to reproductive issues,
Wow.
notably oxygen therapy and etc. It's the same.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the same thing that's happening. We've we've been harming the population for 100 years, and
Mm.
we're accelerating, and we've passed a point where, um, well, either we fix that, or we're going to have a selection of only people who are unvaccinated. The rest of the
Mm.
people are just going to die.
Mm.
So we really need
Wow.
to people who I mean, not thankfully, but one of the positive aspects of the vaccine. If you want to look at something, there's another article on reproduction where I have an entire map
Mm.
of everything that can happen, and it's
Mm.
massive. So, given you have a baby, an infant, a father, a mother, you have so many weak points. It's no
Right.
surprise that fertility is dropping like crazy.
Oh, it's very concerning. It's very concerning. Yeah. Thank you for that. And I wanted to make sure folks know how to get a hold of your work because it's remarkable. So I'm just gonna, if you could just walk us through. This was that article that I just loved on, and I've been talking about this for 25 years. Natural versus vaccine induced immunity. This is a great article, so well done. And the link for this is in the chat. So,
Yeah.
Mark, this is your Substack where you publish extensively. It's remarkable what's here, and this is the bolus. Is this the right spot to go?
Yes. Sorry. Yes. Yes.
Oh, it's okay. Okay, so this is Mark's Substack, and this is the bolus theory series, and this is where is this sort of Mark Central for folks who want to stay current with your work?
Yeah. There's a lot. There's really a lot. I mean, I try to. First of all, I've worked a lot on the content, on the research,
Yes,
in numerous areas, and it's all it's. I don't. I never say things I can't prove.
right,
I don't write. I don't write every day. I write maybe
sure,
once a month, or maybe
sure.
once when I have time,
Yep.
twice a month. But there's a lot in there already, on
A lot,
autism,
for sure.
on cancer, a lot of things also on the brain damage and the implications for civilization, for example.
Right.
Uh, there's yeah, I've been working a lot.
I can see that, and thank you for that. And
uh,
please, I encourage our listeners to support Mark and his work by subscribing to his Substack. It's very inexpensive, and it's a wonderful way to support his work because it's important work. And he's made such a contribution to humanity by doing this depth of research that it's important to support this work and to support Mark in doing this work. It's an enormous gift that Mark has provided for us by doing this level of research. So please support Mark by subscribing to his Substack. Please get his book, which is widely available, The Needle Secret: Unraveling the Mystery of Vaccine Harm and the Bolus Theory Revolution. Other things you wanted to share today, Mark, to feel complete?
I think we've talked a lot. I mean,
We have,
I could ramble for all night. No,
for sure.
no, it's fascinating because you asked me whether scientists followed me or not. So first of all, and I didn't completely answer to that question.
Yeah.
Um, s- those who read my work and
Yes.
listen
Yes.
typically are odd. Okay,
Hmm.
and you could go to the comments on Amazon. There
Sure.
are doctors or professors. When I presented my theory to Michael Leavitt, the professor, Nobel Prize winner, he
Yes.
said, "Mark, it's so simple." Um,
Right. Right.
but it's right. It's you know it is simple. I mean, there's a lot of details that I didn't share with him during that time, but it is relatively simple. I believe, unfortunately, um, uh, people haven't. Yeah, Denis Rancourt also was positive. There are
Yeah,
a lot of
please.
people.
I'm sorry, Mark. I've been mispronouncing his name forever. How do you pronounce his name correctly?
Rancourt,
Holcool.
but Rancourt, it's hard.
Okay.
It's okay. I'm sure he's fine with you saying Rancourt. Um,
Sure.
uh, those who have taken the time to read my work uh, were convinced. Okay, but
Hmm.
the problem is very few people um, actually did,
Hmm.
and very few people understand that the Bullis theory is not just just one domino. They don't
Yes.
understand all the domino effects
Right.
and the implications because they haven't listened to me or they haven't read my work. There's
Hmm.
a lot of complexity, and there are many things that are like that.
Hmm.
And so they say, but one explanation can't explain everything. That's basically their logic,
Oh,
which is
I
not a
see.
scientific logic.
Right. Right.
If
Right.
if if you take the consequences of the sun in the summer coming, and all the things that happen from hurricanes to trees blossoming and fruits coming and droughts coming and there one single element can trigger multiple
Yes.
dominoes, and that's what's
Yeah.
happening. And
Hmm.
notably, we're destroying nature's protection.
Hmm.
If you
Right.
bypass nature's protection, or if you destroy it, which is what we're doing,
Right.
or if you're harming in a way for which the body hasn't evolved, you get all of that, and that's what we're
Right.
doing.
Wow. That's that's profound. That is profound. Let me just check to see if we have other questions for. I think we've done them. And yeah, excellent. Any final thoughts, Mark, or things you wanted to share with people, or how to connect with you and support your work?
I'm always happy. First of all, um, if you are suffering from vaccine harm and you're asking yourselves questions, etc.,
Yes.
feel free to reach out.
Hmm.
Of course, pro bono, but I always am happy to try and help people.
Sure.
Um, so that's the first point. Um, and I always think of Dr. Semmelweis.
Hmm.
It,
Yes. Yes.
um,
Ignace Semmelweis. Yes.
because I'm in the same situation, except I'm not even a doctor.
Right.
I've been working at this for 5 years now, and
Hmm.
you still have people who discount my work like that with very casually. Uh,
Hmm.
um, and that happened to Semmelweis, and Semmelweis, I think, was dramatic, but this is even worse than Semmelweis,
Hmm.
right?
Right. Well, yeah, and just if you could just tell the story for folks who are not familiar with his
Well,
hand washing, delivering babies story.
yeah, Dr. Semmelweis was a Hungarian doctor in Vienna, and he did a statistical analysis on mothers giving birth death rates between two hospitals. One
Yes.
was a very fancy hospital with fancy doctors, and another one with nuns. And the
Right.
nuns were washing their hands and weren't, of course, manipulating cadavers when the elites were actually doing dissections in the morning,
Right.
not washing their hands, going to lunch,
Hmm.
and after that, uh, taking care of women who were giving birth, and they were killing, I think, 15%,
Oh,
and most likely maiming many more
right.
at the time. And what he basically showed those statistics, explained what was happening. Of course, it was pre-bacteria, pre all of that, but
Right.
potentially. But it's interesting because it's something that's now considered like normal and gesture to wash your hands before before practicing medicine.
Right. But at the
Uh,
time, he
but
was
at the
savage.
time, at the time it wasn't, and he was completely mocked.
Hmm.
Um, he actually lost his like me. He became homeless very quickly.
Hmm.
And then he was beaten to death in a madhouse, so
Oh.
um, and his work was ignored for 50 years.
Hmm.
50 years. Um, I think if we ignore my work for 50 years, I think humanity will fall into chaos.
Hmm.
I don't think we can survive. We can survive with so many autistic children,
Right.
so many people obese, so many people
Right.
with mental health disorders. Because, of course, if you damage the brain, you have mental health disorders,
Yes.
um, reproduction issues, etc. What I've tried reaching out to Secretary Kennedy. I haven't had a response, even though it's interesting because what I've discovered would solve his issues.
Right.
Because I'm not, even though I'm not no longer a big fan of vaccines,
Sure.
this is not my battle.
Right.
My battle is if you inject a product to people, and especially to children, at least make sure that you're not harming them,
Well,
right? And I
right.
know, and it's a very simple way. Just
Yep.
change the injection technique, and the
Hmm.
impact will be phenomenal.
Well, you
Phenomenal. It'll
were
be
you were with Dell on Highwire, yes?
no, I wasn't. Never.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well,
Dallas has never invited me.
he would love to have you. I'll send him a note. And yeah, I mean that would be. I
I,
mean, because
I'd love to have. I mean, I spoke to Jay Bhattacharya for 3 hours, 2.5 years ago,
oh wow,
but I
wow.
don't think Jay got it
Okay. Okay.
somehow. Uh, I think he was dubious. I mean, I think he got this. First of all, what I'm saying is that the medical establishment has been harming us for a century. That's what I'm
Yes,
saying.
for sure.
And so it's almost impossible for a doctor. That's why I was hoping that
Oh,
Secretary, it's almost impossible for a doctor to be responsible for that
right.
because it's
Cognitive dissonance.
yeah, it's a huge cognitive dissonance. And
Yeah.
but I do believe that Secretary Kennedy is somebody like that, or Dell actually,
Right.
um, or retired. I have a lot of people who are retired doctors or retired biologists who
Yes.
get it,
Right.
who get it because they're not at risk.
Right. Yes, that's a good point.
But
That's a.
yeah, I mean, if you if
I'll
you can
introduce you to Dell
introduce
by
me to
email.
Dell,
You'd be amazed
or
because he, as last time we spoke, um, like we're friends, but he's not as much interested in my specialty, which is the clinical stuff and education. He's more interested in like we want to present the science.
yeah,
That's we want to present the science of vaccinology to people. I mean, that's you. So I think
yeah.
it would be a
Yeah,
natural thing.
but the thing is, I have a lot of backstabbers. So there are a
Mm,
lot of people backstabbing me,
oh boy.
and the fact that I am in France and resourceless,
Yeah.
I don't even have enough cash to pay my a plane ticket to the U.S. Last time I was
Sure.
there was actually somebody I helped, who tried to help, who invited me there.
Oh wow.
Um, but um, but yeah, I know this is huge impact, and the impact can be both on stopping the damage
Right?
and also, of course, repairing people.
Yes.
Because
But
you can't repair people if you don't know what they have. I mean, doctors don't
Mhm.
know.
Right.
You really don't understand what's going on.
Mark, is this your organization? Do I have this right? Uh,
Yeah, that's Panda. I mean, I don't. Panda is sort of. I don't participate much anymore to
oh,
Panda.
okay. Okay.
I'm with. Nick Hudson is my friend. We continue interacting
Sure. Sure.
regularly, but it was really during the COVID period where
Oh, okay.
I was most with Panda.
Sure.
Now I mostly work. I continue to work alone and try to. I think I've uncovered as much as I could, but I say that, but every time I scratch, I discover something
Right.
new.
Right.
Um, for example, the idea that metastasis might come from this stem cell repair collaboration from organ to
Right.
organ
Right.
I think, an interesting theory.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's endless. I wish some people had followed me 4 years ago because we would have discovered so much more.
Oh, okay.
Um, it's we explain neurodegeneration.
Right.
Even obesity is ectopic fat, for example. What is ectopic fat? Well, it's fat that's going directly into the blood from the leaky gut instead of
Right.
going through the lymphatic system.
Right.
So of course it goes places it's not supposed to go.
Right.
So
Right.
it's endless. It's endless what I've
It is.
discovered.
Well,
And
thank you.
but what's interesting is, in a way, what I've discovered is the limits of the immune body to repair itself and
Hmm.
mitigate harm.
Hmm.
It's not only related to vaccines, but it's
Right.
shown the limits of the human body and any animals for that matter, because
Right.
it also applies to mammals.
Yes. Well, that's excellent. Well, Mark, thank you so much. I just have just huge appreciation for you and your selfless work,
Thank you.
and what you've been doing at, significant personal sacrifice to bring very leading edge ideas that apply really to all of us and to human health in general, and to this vaccine catastrophe that we have been under for, as you said, for over a century. So I just, want you to receive on behalf of all of us, our
Okay.
appreciation for you. Please subscribe to Mark's Substack. I just did a minute ago, and so please follow my lead and provide your support to Mark for him to continue this work and support himself and his family. It's really important. And so you can go to his Substack and do that, and support Mark and his work. Please get his book and recommend it to as many as you can, uh, to uh, to get the word out on this important research. So many blessings to you, Mark. Thank you. You are a great light in this world and bringing understanding and knowledge and insight and truth into an area that is just so critical. So
Thank
so thank
you.
you very much. I much appreciate you.
Thank you so much for hosting me. Thank you. Thank you for your trust. Thank you for taking the time for listening to my long ramble. And I want to
Of
thank
course.
Peter McCullough because he was the one who quoted me last time. He was
Yes.
on your show, and
Yes.
and that's how we've actually met. So
Yeah, many thanks to Peter. He's a huge fan of your work. Now we understand even more why. This is a message that everybody needs to hear, and I really encourage people to get your book, subscribe to your stack, and help spread this knowledge. It's so important and so far-reaching, as you point out in your book, relating to so many chronic conditions.
yes,
And so thank you for that.
thank
All
you.
right, Mark
Bye bye.
Girardeau, thank you. Thank you for your time today and for your ongoing work.
Just to complete.
Yeah, thank you. All right,
Thank you.
very good. Well, thanks everyone for being here today. I know it was a kind of a marathon show, a little longer than usual, but given as what what is that? Who just, as Sabine just said, Mark would have to speak for 12 hours straight just to be complete, and he could. Sabine is spot on. We could listen to Mark for days and weeks, and he wouldn't be repeating himself after doing, 15,000 hours of research, publishing over 1,000 articles, and it's just incredible. So please help this great man's work spread, and please support his work in whatever way you can. This is very, very important information that's very practical. This is not, there's theoretical aspects, but this is very practical and very applicable to all of us. So thank you, everybody. Just want to give you a look ahead. I'm just feeling very blessed that we have some of the leading thinkers in the world joining us on the show, including Mark. And I just want to thank you for all those who've been viewing and supporting the show. And I'm just going to give folks links. And just to look ahead, we have an amazing lineup of thought leaders coming up on the show. And here's the show page. Please share this with everybody you know, so they can listen to amazing speakers and thought leaders like Mark Girardeau. And next week we have James Barry, the founder of Pluck Seasonings, my new favorite seasoning, coming to be on the show to talk about nutrition, and one of our faculty, Dr. Mark Rhodes, on solutions to the infertility crisis, part of what Mark was talking about today. And then in 2 weeks, we're very honored to have Alex Mayer, brilliant lady in California, the head of the Free Now Foundation. A little bit of a different topic. I was on her show talking about COVID injections, the genocide jab, and she's going to be coming onto the show to talk about Real ID, weaponized architecture for surveillance technocracy and the importance of health freedom. And that's just one. And one of the retired physicians who's speaking out is Dr. Richard Bosshart, a retired, very highly esteemed retired surgeon, is going to be on the show. And another retired physician, Dr. James Thorpe, will be on also in July. We're going to be having kind of a patriotic Happy Birthday America show on July 6th. I'm working on the lineup of folks to speak there, and many others who we're just confirming who we're going to be scheduling for later this year. So, and thanks to all of you who've been supporting the show through one-time or monthly contributions. And also go to our clinic page, and if you have not yet had a natural functional medicine and Chinese medicine consultation in the last year, it's time for yourself or someone you care about. You can see that on our patients page. And just a reminder, we have 68 courses on natural health, holistic health, and natural functional medicine, trainings for practitioners, and also just the health conscious public. Please join us for Decoding the Heart, which starts later today. And we're wrapping up the Headache Advantage shortly with myself and Dr. Scott Ferzal. We have our new fertility course coming up in July, Herbal Summer School coming up in August, as well as our 11th annual Clinicians Retreat and Intensive here in Colorado. And many other subjects were scheduled for the whole year now. We have a new course every month. Now we're scheduling courses for next year with new faculty and new courses by existing faculty. So you can also support this show by purchasing a course for yourself or someone you care about on natural health, all to support our philosophy of nature first, drugs last. So thanks, everybody. Blessings to you and yours. Thanks for being here today. And we will see you next week. And a little thank you to folks who've hung in there for our kind of unusually long show today. I'm going to play the piano for you a little bit. And just as a thank you for hanging in for our marathon show today with the great Mark Girardeau. So thanks, everybody. Here's a little piano music for you, and we'll see you next week. Just have to set up, we have to do the special settings for doing music, and that will do it. Okay, great. We are set up for now. I'm gonna make sure, double check the audio. It is set. Okay, great. So let's see. I'm not sure what we're going to play. It'll be an original or Bach. I'm not sure. Oh, let's do some Bach. Okay. Thanks, everybody. A little Bach for you. And we will see you next week. Have a wonderful week. And remember, the Bolus Theory on Substack, Marc Giraudoux, and please support his work. All right. Have a great week, everybody. Take care. Blessings.